Chapter 37. Blow up again. The intense light was as hot as the sun as it shone on the entire martial arts practice field. Everyone in the martial arts practice field could not help but use their hands to cover their eyes to block the intense light. Bang! 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 Loud sounds accompanied by the roars of dragons and tigers reverberated throughout the entire martial arts practice field, giving people the illusion that they had traveled through time and space. When the light gradually faded, a figure suddenly flew out of the martial arts practice field like a fallen leaf. Blood continuously flowed out of the figure's mouth, looking very miserable. When many people narrowed their eyes and saw the true face of this figure, their eyes could not help but widen. Their eyes were filled with shock because they recognized the owner of this figure. It was actually Zhuotian, the number one person in the inner courtyard who was at the soul transformation stage. Zhuotian lost. At this moment, the martial arts practice field was completely silent. Everyone stared blankly at Zhuotian, who had fallen outside the martial arts practice field. No one spoke for a long time. Gotcha! The teacup in Zhuo Xiangding's hand was instantly crushed. The fragments of the teacup fell to the ground with a clatter, but Zhuo Xiangding still did not feel anything. He only stared blankly at the retreating figure on the training field. You won? Zhuowen actually won? After muttering to himself for a while, Zhuo Xiangding's breathing involuntarily became a little heavier. This was because he was too excited. That's right. Zhuowen, this little fellow, has brought us too many surprises. Triplet armor soul. He was able to enter the mystic comprehending realm as a mere divine valor realm. Now he even relied on the spirit detecting realm to challenge a soul transformation realm cultivator, and won. It seems that our Zhuo family has hope in the market square battle half a year later. Zhuo Baitian, who was beside Zhuo Xiangding, couldn't help but have an excited look on his face as he muttered incoherently. On the other side of the platform, Zhuo Dingtian's face was gloomy. He stared at Zhuotian, who was lying outside the martial arts practice field, and a ferocious look flashed across his eyes. The representatives of the various forces surrounding Zhuo Dingtian were speechless. They stared blankly at Zhuo Dingtian's defeated figure. They were still encouraging Zhuo Dingtian to win the battle a moment ago. However, Zhuo Dingtian's defeat was like a slap to their faces. As Zhuotian flew out, everyone in the martial arts practice field focused their attention on the dust-covered stage. When the dust slowly dissipated, the first thing they saw was the shattered stage. The arena, which was originally made of hard bluestone, was now shattered into pieces of stone. On top of these pieces of stone, there was a figure that wasn't very sturdy. This figure was like a boulder, standing quietly on top of the stone. It was as if he was the only surviving warrior on the battlefield, standing firm and unyielding. After the dust dissipated, the figure revealed a rather handsome face. When everyone saw this handsome face, they finally believed that the winner was Zhuowen, who was only at the spirit detecting realm. Those who thought they were hallucinating were now convinced. On the platform, when Zhuo Xiang saw the figure gradually appear on the stage, the worry in her beautiful eyes gradually calmed down and was replaced by shock. Fortunately, this guy is fine. No, why do I care so much about this hateful guy? Zhuo Xiang immediately thought of something and the corner of her mouth curled up. She turned her delicate porcelain doll-like face to the side and didn't look at Zhuowen. Even so, Zhuo Xiang's watery eyes couldn't help but secretly glance at the slender figure on the stage. On the edge of the shattered stage, the old man with the lot looked at the youth in front of him with shock. After taking a deep breath, the old man shouted, "Zhuowen wins this battle." As soon as the old man said this, the originally silent martial arts practice field instantly became lively. Many young girls in the field had extraordinary splendor in their beautiful eyes as they looked at the tall and straight figure in the arena. At this moment, Zhuowen's name had completely spread throughout the Zhuo family. He even had some fame in Rattan Armor City. In everyone's eyes, Zhuowen was already the undisputed number one person in the inner courtyard. While everyone in the martial arts practice field was cheering, Zhuotian, who was lying outside the martial arts practice field, held his chest. His eyes were ferocious as he looked at Zhuowen, who was like a moon surrounded by stars. His throat let out a roar that didn't sound like a human's voice. I can't accept this. I am the number one person in the inner courtyard. I should be the successor of the family. Zhuowen, you took everything from me. Today I want you to die. Zhuotian's eyes were bloodshot, and his face was filled with madness. His right hand trembled as he took out a scarlet crystal from his bosom. His origin energy violently surged into the crystal, and the unknown blood-colored energy within the crystal immediately burrowed into Zhuotian's body. At the same time, Zhuotian's originally bloodshot eyes turned blood red. The originally withered aura on Zhuotian's body also disappeared without a trace. Replacing it was an extremely powerful and terrifying aura. This aura was even more powerful than when he was at his peak. Zhuowen, I want you to die. Zhuotian's legs bounced as his entire body was shrouded in the stench of blood. His entire being turned into a bloody shadow as he shot towards the figure in the middle of the field. A monstrous bloody aura slowly emanated from his body. The sudden shout also suppressed the lively atmosphere in the martial arts practice field. Everyone looked at Zhuotian, who was shrouded in a dense bloody aura, with disbelief. They could feel the terrifying aura contained within Zhuotian's body. This aura was even more powerful than before. What's going on? How did Zhuotian suddenly become so strong? Looking at his aura, it seems like he's about to reach the peak of the soul transformation stage. Wasn't Zhuotian severely injured by Zhuowen? Why does he look so lively now? He doesn't seem to have any injuries at all? Feeling the terrifying aura on Zhuotian's body, many people in the martial arts practice field involuntarily took a few steps back. Clearly, Zhuotian's aura had caused many people to be extremely fearful. Is this the symptom of the blood qi crystal? Zhuotian used the blood qi crystal? Second brother, what's going on? On the stage, Zhuoxiangding also noticed the abnormality in Zhuotian's body. He looked at Zhuodingtian's direction with an unfriendly gaze and shouted coldly. Zhuodingtian's eyes flickered. He actually lowered his head and remained silent. However, there was a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. Hehe. After using the blood qi crystal, Tian-Er's strength is comparable to a peak of the soul transformation stage martial artist. Zhuowen, even if you don't die this time, you'll lose a layer of skin. The silent Zhuodingtian lowered his head and thought to himself. Looking at Zhuodingtian's carefree attitude, Zhuoxiangding snorted coldly and said, if anything happens to Zhuowen, you'll have to deal with it yourself. Although Zhuoxiangding wanted to stop it, after all, the fight between Zhuowen and Zhuotian was between the younger generation. Moreover, many forces in Rattan Armor City were watching. If he were to interfere without knowing the reason, he would definitely become a laughingstock. With this in mind, Zhuoxiangding did not act rashly. Father, what should I do now? Zhuotian used the blood qi crystal. His cultivation is comparable to a peak of the soul transformation stage martial artist. Although Zhuowen has some tricks up his sleeve, he's still no match for Zhuotian. Why don't I go up and stop it? Zhuobeitian's mood was quite urgent. Zhuowen was considered a rare genius in the Zhuo family. He did not want anything to happen to Zhuowen. Zhuoxiangding frowned. He looked expectantly at the young figure in the arena. Let's wait and see. Zhuowen doesn't seem to be worried at all. He should still have some tricks up his sleeve. If it's really not going to work, boss, just do it. At this moment, Zhuotian's entire body was surrounded by a thick blood qi. His originally handsome face was filled with a ferocious expression. It was obvious that he was suffering a great deal of pain. Zhuowen, I can't accept this. You must die today. Go to hell. Zhuotian roared at the sky. He stomped his feet and a huge force crushed the hard stone floor. Zhuotian was like a cannonball as he charged towards Zhuowen. Zhuotian, today I'll make you give up completely. I'll make you understand that even if you use some tricks to increase your strength in a short period of time, you're still no match for me, Zhuowen. Looking at Zhuotian, who was getting closer and closer, Zhuowen's face was as calm as still water. He took a deep breath and instead of retreating, he clenched his hand into a fist and punched towards Zhuotian. The strong and fierce force immediately tore the air apart and made a hissing sound. When Zhuowen punched out this seemingly ordinary punch, no one noticed that Zhuowen's skin was turning scarlet at a speed visible to the naked eye. A bloodthirsty and powerful aura slowly awakened in Zhuowen's body. It was as if a ferocious beast was slowly awakening in Zhuowen's body. First layer of rampage. An almost undetectable roar came from his throat. Soon after, The ordinary punch that Zhuowen punched out turned incomparably blood red. A smell of blood that was even stronger than Zhuowen's started to spread out from Zhuowen's body. This strange smell of blood immediately attracted Zhuotian's attention. However, Zhuotian didn't care at all. From his point of view, his strength had already reached the peak of the soul transformation stage. No matter how hard Zhuowen struggled, he wouldn't be a match for him. Crack! The crisp sound of bones breaking resounded throughout the entire training grounds. Soon after, Zhuotian's face, which was originally full of pride, suddenly turned abnormally ugly. The sinister smile at the corner of his mouth also froze at this moment. Under everyone's gazes, Zhuotian, who was emitting a powerful aura from his body, was sent flying once again. The blood in his mouth was like a faucet that wasn't turned on properly. Bang! Chapter 38. Epilogue and Reward. As they looked at Zhuotian, who was screaming in pain outside the martial arts practice field, everyone felt as if they were dreaming. Zhuotian's strength had suddenly soared. Everyone had seen it with their own eyes. That was at least a strength that far surpassed the initial stage of the soul transformation realm. It was even possible that he had reached the peak of the soul transformation realm. However, even though Zhuowen's strength had skyrocketed, he was still beaten back to his original form by a single punch from Zhuowen. At this moment, everyone looked at Zhuowen in a different light, and the not-so-burly figure on the stage became even more imposing in everyone's hearts. Good. This kid Zhuowen has truly given us too many surprises. Even Zhuowen, who had used a blood chi crystal, was defeated once again. If this kid is properly groomed, his future achievements will definitely surpass his father's. Zhuo Xiangding slowly recovered from the shock. Suddenly, he laughed heartily. His face was full of gratification. When did this guy become so powerful? Zhuo Xiang'er covered her red lips with her lily-white hand. Her beautiful eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor as she looked at the young figure in the arena. Right when everyone was still in shock, an explosive shout instantly resounded from the platform, and then a violent figure flashed towards Zhuowen like an arrow that had left the bow. Zhuowen, you son of a bitch, how dare you injure Tian? Today I'll kill you. The sudden shout woke up everyone in the training field. When they saw the figure dashing toward them, a strange expression appeared on their faces. This was because the aggressive figure was the second master of the Zhuo family, Zhuo Dingtian. No one had expected Zhuo Dingtian to attack a junior in front of everyone. Lauer, don't go too far. Injuries are inevitable in a fight. As an elder, not only do you not know how to be lenient, you even want to lay your hands on the younger generation. You're really a disgrace to our Zhuo family. Zhuo Xiangding's face darkened as he watched Zhuo Dingtian fly away. He did not expect the scheming Zhuo Dingtian to lose his mind in rage. With a wave of his right hand, Zhuo Xiangding's powerful Yuanli turned into a huge palm and wrapped around Zhuo Dingtian. Then, he pulled Zhuo Dingtian back to his front. Zhuo Xiangding's move immediately shocked the restless crowd in the martial arts arena. Only Zhao King realm martial artists could condense their essence energy into a form. Could it be that Zhuo Xiangding had broken through in the past few years? Kneeling in front of Zhuo Xiangding, Zhuo Dingtian regained his rationality. Thinking of what he had done just now, Zhuo Dingtian regretted it. He was too impulsive just now. Father, I'm sorry. I was too worried about Tianer just now. That's why I lost control of my emotions. Zhuo Xiangding said softly as he looked guiltily at Zhuo Xiangding. A straightforward person does not resort to insinuations. I know you have some grudges with Zhuowen. However, I want to say that as the descendants of the Zhuo family, I don't want you to fight against each other. Seeing that the battle for the market is about to begin, the Zhuo family should work together instead of fighting against each other. 6 months later, Zhuowen and Zhuo Dingtian will be the main force of the Zhuo family. I don't want you to harm the interests of the family because of personal grudges. Zhuo Xiangding's tone was heavy as he stared at Zhuo Dingtian. He knew his second son too well. In the past, Zhuo Xiaotian had stolen his limelight. Therefore, he hated Zhuo Xiaotian's bloodline. Now that Zhuo Xiaotian had mysteriously disappeared, he naturally hated Zhuo Xiaotian's son Zhuowen. Therefore, he had been making things difficult for Zhuo Dingtian. That's right. Second brother, we are all descendants of the Zhuo family. We should work together. Now that the Chun family and the Wang family are eyeing our family covetously, do you want to harm the interests of the family because of personal grudges? Second brother, you'd better wake up. Zhuo Baitian, who was standing aside, also tried to persuade Zhuo Dingtian. Father, I'm sorry. I know I'm wrong. Zhuo Dingtian took a deep breath and finally said in disappointment, It's good that you know you're wrong. Don't make things difficult for Zhuowen in the future. Since it's your first offense, I won't punish you severely. Go to the reflection pavilion and reflect on yourself. Now that you've reached the peak of the 9th level of the Yin Void stage, you can come out again when you break through to the corporeal Yang stage. Also, Zhuotian secretly used the blood chi crystal to increase his strength. This old man will also cancel the rewards for this family competition. Alright, you can leave with Zhuotian first. You can come out again when you think it through or break through to the corporeal Yang stage. Zhuo Dingtian stole a glance at Zhuo Xiangding. He knew his father was really angry this time. After replying obediently, he went to Zhuo Xiangding, who was outside the martial arts practice field, and carried Zhuo Xiangding on his shoulder. Father, avenge me and kill Zhuowen. Although Zhuotian was seriously injured, he could still speak. At this time, he looked at Zhuowen with red eyes and roared. Shut up! Zhuo Dingtian shouted. Then he looked at Zhuowen, who was not far away, with a complicated expression. He knew Zhuowen was really powerful now. Even he could not get rid of this young man in front of him. After taking a deep look at Zhuowen, Zhuo Dingtian carried Zhuotian and left the martial arts practice field. In the martial arts practice field, Zhuowen did not notice that the father and son had left quietly. Instead, he looked at his hands with excitement and muttered to himself, the violent blood beast body is so powerful. I can fight against a soul transformation stage expert with the first sky of rampage. It seems that this secret skill should be very precious. This was the first time Zhuowen had fully displayed the violent blood beast body. Although it was only the first sky of rampage, the power it displayed was really satisfying to Zhuowen. Moreover, this was the effect of the blood essence of a level 1 meta beast. He wondered how powerful this secret skill would be if he used the blood essence of a higher level meta beast. As the family competition came to an end, Zhuo Xiangding suddenly stood up and cupped his hands to the various factions outside the martial arts practice field. He said, Our Zhuo family's family competition has come to a successful end. Thank you all for coming. Zhuo Xiangding's action immediately made a good impression on many factions. The leaders of these factions also politely cupped their hands to Zhuo Xiangding and said that they did not dare to accept the invitation. Moreover, when Zhuo Xiangding blocked Zhuo Dingtian's attack, these factions knew that the Zhuo family was indeed very powerful. Many factions began to consider whether they should rely on the Zhuo family or not. In an instant, the martial arts practice field became lively again. This old man is very pleased with the results of this family competition. I am very happy to see that all the younger generation in the family have done well. Now this old man will announce the top 3 of this family competition. When Zhuo Xiangding's words left his mouth, the martial arts practice field once again quieted down. Furthermore, many people's gazes gradually converged on Zhuo Wen, who had maintained a calm expression throughout. They knew that this youth could be considered as the biggest dark horse in this family competition. First place Zhuowen, second place Zhuo Xiang'er and third place Zhuo Meishue. Since Zhuotian violated the rules during the family competition, this old man has cancelled his reward. Alright, the 3 people that this old man has called out just now, please come to this old man. With regards to the results announced by Zhuo Xiangding, the crowd was not surprised. Zhuowen's stunning performance in this family competition had indeed convinced many people. After Zhuo Xiangding's announcement, Zhuo Wen, Zhuo Xiang'er, and Zhuo Meishue walked over to Zhuo Xiangding under the envious gazes of the crowd. On the way, Zhuo Meishue's beautiful eyes glanced at Zhuowen. She came to his side and said with a charming smile, This time, big sister was able to get third place thanks to little brother Zhuowen. This time I really have to thank you. After saying that, Zhuo Meishue stuck out her chest. Her impressive figure was like a wave of flowery flowers, looking exceptionally beautiful and incomparably alluring. Even Zhuowen could not help but take a second look. In his heart, he was also amazed by Zhuo Meishue's figure. If Zhuo Meishue's figure was placed on earth, She would definitely be a goddess at the level of a national treasure. Moreover, this woman's appearance could be considered elegant and gorgeous. This kind of figure and appearance could instantly defeat all the so-called goddesses on earth. Zhuoxiang also noticed the trace of intoxication on Zhuowen's face. She lowered her head and looked at herself. Her heart was filled with jealousy. She snorted and immediately blocked Zhuowen's line of sight. She snorted and said, "Zhuowen, pervert, where are you looking at? Humph, there are no good men in this world." Originally, Zhuowen was looking with enthusiasm. Who would have thought that Zhuoxiang would block his line of sight? After secretly lamenting in his heart, Zhuowen looked at Zhuoxiang with a malicious gaze and said indifferently, "Even if you let me see your boobs, I'm too lazy to look. TSK, they're too small and tasteless." After saying that, Zhuowen ignored the flustered and exasperated Zhuoxiang. He took the lead and jumped onto the platform, arriving in front of Zhuoxiangding. "Little sister Xiang, looks like someone dislikes you. However, yours are indeed too small. When you're as big as me, perhaps little brother Zhuowen will see you in a different light." Zhuomeishue stood up proudly and laughed coquettishly. She followed behind Zhuowen and jumped onto the platform. Humph, coquettish vixen, are mine really too small? Do all men like big ones?" Zhuoxiang couldn't help but examine herself. She realized that she was indeed a few sizes smaller than Zhuomeishue. Her face instantly blushed a little. On the platform, Zhuoxiangding looked at Zhuowen and the other two in front of him with a gratified expression. He smiled and said, "You can be considered the most outstanding disciples of the Zhuo family. In half a year, it will be the market battle in Rotan Armor City, which is held once every 5 years. This old man hopes that you can bring glory to the Zhuo family. All right, let me give you your rewards first." After saying that, Zhuoxiangding, who was standing beside Zhuoxiangding, smiled and took out 3 brocade boxes from his Qingkuan bag. With a flick of his finger, the 3 brocade boxes landed in the hands of the 3 of them. After receiving the brocade boxes, Zhuowen's gaze became much more fervent. This was the first time he had seen a 3rd-grade spiritual medicine. Chapter 39. Past glory. As night fell, the ink-like dark clouds resembled a gigantic black dragon, darkened the night sky. The once bustling training grounds were now deserted. Deep within the inner courtyard of the Zhuo family, in a luxurious loft, Zhuowen sat on a chair. His eyes were as calm as water as he gazed at the white-haired old man in front of him. "Grandfather, it's time to tell me the truth from 10 years ago." The dignified Zhuoxiangding's face was no longer as dignified as it used to be. Instead, a trace of helplessness appeared on his resolute face. He furrowed his brows and said, "Zhuowen, to be honest, you've really surprised me. If I knew you had such a monstrous talent, I wouldn't have made that promise to you." Zhuowen shrugged his shoulders and said indifferently, "Sometimes reality is just like that. Things don't always go as planned." Zhuoxiangding pondered for a moment, then said slowly, "Before I tell you the truth, you need to come with me to a place. Also, the armor technique you used in the training grounds was the primeval dragon roar fist, right?" Zhuowen's expression changed. He stared at Zhuoxiangding and said cautiously, "Grandfather, how did you know? Grandson doesn't remember having such an armor technique in the family." "Haha, when you get to the place I mentioned, you'll know why I know about it. Now come with me," Zhuoxiangding said as he strode forward without hesitation. Looking at Zhuoxiangding's back, Zhuowen's eyes flickered. In the end, he followed Zhuoxiangding's footsteps. Looking at the shabby little temple in front of him, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with even more suspicion. The small temple was an earth temple, less than 10 square meters in size. Broken bricks and tiles were everywhere, and it looked like it had not been repaired for a long time. This earth temple was located in a desolate area behind the Zhuo family's mountain, and people rarely came here. However, what made Zhuowen puzzled was, why did his grandfather bring him here? The moment Zhuoxiangding came in front of the earth temple, his expression turned solemn. He even looked solemn. As soon as they entered the temple, an unpleasant moldy smell immediately assailed their nostrils. Even with Zhuowen's excellent patience, he couldn't help but cover his nose with his hand. However, Zhuoxiangding didn't even frown. Zhuoxiangding stepped in front of the dilapidated statue in the middle of the temple. His right hand touched his forehead, and a strange shadow with a dragon head and tortoise body flew out from between his eyebrows. Zhuowen knew that this strange shadow should be Zhuo Xiangding's armor soul. After the strange armor soul let out a dragon roar, it suddenly burrowed into the dilapidated statue. Then Zhuowen saw that the statue suddenly seemed to come alive as it emitted a golden light. Then with a violent tremor, the statue slowly moved to the side, revealing a deep black hole below. Zhuowen, follow me in. Zhuo Xiangding gave Zhuowen a look, then took the lead and entered the black hole. Zhuowen hesitated for a moment, then followed closely behind Zhuo Xiangding and jumped in. After walking aimlessly in the narrow passageway for a quarter of an hour, Zhuowen and Zhuo Xiangding finally reached the end of the passageway. The scene at the end of the passageway caused Zhuowen to freeze on the spot. In front of Zhuowen was a huge platform with a radius of 1,000 miles. What shocked Zhuowen was that in the middle of the platform stood a huge stone dragon statue. The stone dragon statue was hundreds of feet long. Zhuowen and Zhuo Xiangding were only the size of the dragon's claw. The two of them looked very insignificant in front of the stone dragon statue. This is, looking at the magnificent stone dragon statue in front of him, Zhuowen's heart couldn't help but tremble violently. Anyone who saw such a huge stone statue for the first time would be shocked. When Zhuowen slowly approached the dragon statue to take a closer look, he suddenly discovered that the dragon's scales were densely packed with words. Upon closer inspection, he discovered that the words were actually a list of people's names, and below the names was an introduction to the life stories of these people. Ryu Zhantian, the first head of the Ryuka family, awakened the Grade 9 Dragon Armor Soul, 5-clawed Golden Dragon. At the peak of the Emperor Realm, he once challenged the savage war god Qi Lin and fought for 8 days and 8 nights. At the Eastern Dawn Plains he killed Qi Lin and founded the Ryuka family in the Eastern Dawn Plains. Long Xiaoao, the 32nd head of the Ryuka family, awakened the Grade 9 Dragon Armor Soul, 9 Hell Fiend Dragon. At the age of 30, he advanced to the Emperor Realm and was known as the most talented person in the continent. After that, his cultivation advanced by leaps and bounds, reaching the Pilgrimage Realm. Thus he began to fight in the East and West, defeating all the experts in the world. Under his leadership, the Ryuka family became the #1 family in the vast eastern lands. Long Xiang, the 108th head of the Ryuka family, and also the last. 10,000 years ago, he joined forces with the leaders of the other 4 dominions to resist the calamity. Although they succeeded in stopping the calamity, Long Xiang and the other 4 dominions fell at the same time. From then on, the Ryuka family gradually declined and finally disappeared from the eyes of the people. These names were all listed on the important scales of the dragon statue. These names and deeds were very unfamiliar to Zhuowen, but for some reason, when Zhuowen saw these names and deeds, the blood in his body began to boil involuntarily. This was a resonance that came from the same bloodline. As Zhuowen browsed through the words on the dragon scale, Zhuowen saw a name on a very inconspicuous scale at the tail of the dragon. His entire body froze as he stared blankly at the name on the scale. Long Xiaotian, descendant of the Ryuka family, awakened the Grade 7 Dragon Armor Soul, dual-headed Nether Dragon. His current whereabouts are unknown. When Zhuowen stared at the dragon scale in a daze, Zhuo Xiangding gently patted Zhuowen's shoulder and said with a sigh, "Long Xiaotian is your father, Zhuo Xiaotan. After reading the words on the dragon scale, you should have some guesses in your heart. Actually, our Zhuo family's surname is not Zhuo but Long. We are the descendant of the Ryuka family that dominated the entire eastern continent 10,000 years ago. And this is the ancestral shrine of our Ryuka family. It records the deeds of the most meritorious Ryuka family over the past tens of thousands of years." Hearing Zhuo Xiangding's explanation, Zhuowen's eyes revealed a look of understanding. He also did not expect the Zhuo family to be so glorious. They were actually the rulers of the eastern continent. One had to know that the Zhuo family's Tengjia city was only an insignificant small city in Muqing County of the Qingxian Empire. In the vast eastern continent, the status of the Qingxian Empire was equivalent to the status of Tengjia City in the Qingxian Empire. From this, one could see how vast the eastern continent was. And such a vast territory was actually controlled by a single family. One could see how powerful the Ryuka family was in the past. Then why did they change their surname now? Zhuowen asked in confusion. Do you know why the Ryuka family suddenly fell after the death of the Flying Dragon clan's leader 10,000 years ago? It was because someone wanted to exterminate the Ryuka family. They wanted to replace the Ryuka family as the new ruler of the eastern continent. Zhuo Xiangding's eyes revealed a look of hatred at this point. Zhuowen could not help but be shocked when he heard this. No wonder the Flying Dragon clan fell so quickly 10,000 years ago with just a trace of Ryuka. It turned out that someone was behind this. Who was it? Zhuowen asked with a heavy expression. It was the current ruler of the eastern continent, the Blue Dragon Hall. 10,000 years ago, the Flying Dragon clan's leader led a group of elite martial artists to successfully resist the calamity. However, the price was the lives of the Flying Dragon clan's leader and those elite martial artists. At that time, the Ryuka family was at its weakest. It was at that time that the ambitious Blue Dragon Hall gathered all the other powers in the eastern continent to attack the Ryuka family. Because the Flying Dragon clan's leader had brought all the elite martial artists with him, there were no strong martial artists in the family. As a result, the Ryuka family suffered a crushing defeat, and all the core disciples of the family were killed. In the end, only a dozen or so outer sect disciples managed to escape. Thus, these outer sect disciples began to live in seclusion. Our Zhuo family is the descendant of those dozen or so outer sect disciples who went into seclusion. However, the Blue Dragon Hall has not given up on their goal of exterminating the Ryuka family. They have always been searching for the remnants of the Ryuka family. At this point, Zhuo Xiangding's dignified face revealed a sorrowful expression. At the same time, a sense of indignation surfaced in his eyes. Does my father's disappearance have anything to do with the Blue Dragon Hall? Zhuowen's expression darkened as he asked in a deep voice. Yes. Your father was the first member of the Zhuo family to awaken a dragon armor soul. Furthermore, he was extremely talented. Even in the entire Qingxian Empire, he could be considered one of the top geniuses. Grandfather had placed all of his hopes on your father. However, I did not expect that your father's dragon armor soul would attract the attention of the Blue Dragon Hall. They wanted to capture and interrogate your father. However, your father's strength was not weak. He managed to escape from the encirclement of the Blue Dragon Hall. In order not to bring disaster to the Zhuo family, not only did your father change his name, but he also did not return even once. It is because of this that we do not know where your father is now. However, grandfather can be sure that your father is not dead yet. It really is the Blue Dragon Hall. Zhuowen snorted coldly. A trace of hatred appeared in his eyes. Zhuo Xiangding glanced at Zhuowen and sighed. Child, the primeval chaos dragon roar fist on your body should have been imparted to you by Xiaotian. Zhuowen nodded slightly. In his mind, he could not help but recall the image of his father's shadow formed by the dragon-shaped jade pendant. He knew that the faction that his father could not speak of was the Blue Dragon Hall. This colossus that dominated the eastern continent was too far away for the Zhuo family. If the Blue Dragon Hall found out that the Zhuo family was a remnant of the Ryuka bloodline, then the Zhuo family would not be far from extinction. Since Xiaotian was willing to impart this armor soul to you, he must believe that the Ryuka bloodline in your body is not weak. You should know that in order to fully unleash the power of the primeval chaos dragon roar fist, you must have a dragon armor soul in your body. Children with the Ryuka bloodline have only one chance to awaken their dragon soul in their lifetime. Child, are you willing to give it a try? At this point, Zhuo Xiangding's face suddenly became serious. However, his eyes emitted a trace of anticipation. Can I really awaken my dragon soul? Zhuowen's tone was a little uncertain. Dragons were spiritual creatures of heaven and earth. They were the supreme creatures that ruled over all things. The dragon armor soul's ability was one of the best among all armor souls. Chapter 40. Dragon Transformation Pool. Looking at the golden pool in front of him, Zhuowen turned to Zhuo Xiangding beside him and asked, Is this the so-called Dragon Transformation Pool? Zhuowen, don't underestimate this Dragon Transformation Pool. It contains a trace of the blood of a true dragon, and can be used to awaken the Ryuka bloodline in your body. If it weren't for the foresight of our ancestor 10,000 years ago, who didn't forget to take away the true dragon's blood in the family when he was fleeing for his life, our Long family would have no hope of rising again. And with the blood of a true dragon, our Ryuka may have a character like the first Ryuka patriarch, who could awaken a 9th-grade dragon soul. From then on, our Ryuka will once again become the #1 family in the Eastern lands, and the enmity of the Ryuka extermination 10,000 years ago can be avenged. At this point, Zhuo Xiangding grabbed Zhuowen's shoulders and said with some excitement, "Zhuowen, you have great talent, and not only are you born with 3 armor souls, one of them is even at the 8th grade. With such great potential, you may even be able to awaken a 9th-grade dragon soul." "Grandfather, don't have too much hope. A 9th-grade dragon soul is very rare even for the Ryuka back in the day. It shouldn't be my turn," Zhuowen said with a bitter smile. "Haha, even if it's not a 9th-grade dragon soul with your talent, the dragon soul you can awaken will not be lower than your father's. Otherwise, your father wouldn't have imparted the primordial dragon roar fist to you. Alright, enter the dragon transformation pool and undergo the baptism. Whether or not you can awaken a dragon soul will be known later." Zhuowen nodded slightly, then took off his outer clothes and jumped into the golden pool in front of him. As soon as he entered the pool, Zhuowen felt a strange energy from the pool rushing towards him. Zhuowen could feel that this strange energy was not acting on his body, but on his mind. At the same time, the entire dragon transformation pool began to boil, and the golden pool water surrounded Zhuowen's skinny figure, forming a huge cocoon. Seeing the dragon transformation pool's reaction, Zhuo Xiangding's face turned red with excitement. The fact that the dragon transformation pool could react meant that Zhuowen's bloodline was strong enough, and awakening a dragon soul was inevitable. Looking at the intense reaction of the dragon transformation pool, it seemed that the dragon soul Zhuowen could awaken was definitely extraordinary. Looking at the light cocoon in front of him, Zhuo Xiangding's face revealed a trace of envy. When he was young, his father had brought him to awaken a dragon soul. Unfortunately, the bloodline in his body was not strong enough, and he was unable to awaken a dragon soul in the end. In the dragon transformation pool, after the pool water wrapped Zhuowen into a light cocoon, Zhuowen realized that the scene in front of him was constantly changing, as if a movie was being played rapidly in front of him. When the rapid playback gradually slowed down, the scene instantly froze on a vast expanse of land. Stepping on the cold soil, Zhuowen's originally somewhat anxious heart gradually calmed down. This was a vast plain. Looking as far as the eye could see, there were layers of mountains protruding from the far distance. The peaks were covered in white snow and shrouded in clouds. Just when Zhuowen thought that there was no one here, the entire plain suddenly rumbled and trembled. Then the cold ground began to crack like a spider web. In the end, the plain shattered into large rocks, and violent waves of magma gushed out from the cracks in the ground. In an instant, the originally peaceful plain turned into a battlefield riddled with holes. Roar! A deafening dragon's roar resounded from the ground. Then, a huge mountain protruded from the middle of the plain. However, if one looked carefully, it was not a mountain at all, but a huge dragon as tall as a mountain. Rumble! A huge dragon's head suddenly protruded from the ground. The ferocious dragon's head was accompanied by blazing magma, and the distinct layers of dragon scales on the surface of the dragon's head exuded a cold metallic texture. Beside the dragon's head, blazing magma was spurting out. However, when this seemingly blazing magma came into contact with the dragon's head, it actually evaporated into nothingness. A pair of golden dragon eyes stared coldly at Zhuowen. The huge dragon's mouth let out a violent dragon's roar, and a violent gust of wind blew towards Zhuowen along with the dragon's roar. Just the gust of wind caused by the dragon's breath instantly pushed Zhuowen thousands of feet away. After barely stabilizing himself, Zhuowen looked in shock at the huge dragon in the distance that had only revealed the tip of the iceberg. The dragon that I'm about to awaken in my body can't be this, right? That's way too fucking fierce. Forcefully suppressing the excitement in his heart, Zhuowen looked at the huge dragon in the distance that was also looking at him with bright eyes. Roar! Another dragon's roar resounded, and the huge dragon suddenly rushed up. The huge dragon's body suddenly appeared in front of Zhuowen's eyes. The huge dragon in front of him was covered in ink-black dragon scales. The huge dragon's body was at least 10,000 feet long. Even a mountain would pale in comparison to such a huge body. The two dragons' horns were like a huge tower that could not be reached, for dragon claws that emitted cold light were hidden under its abdomen, ready to strike at any time. The huge dragon in front of him was a typical Eastern divine dragon. However, what was surprising was that this dragon's pair of golden eyes was very incompatible with its ink-black body. Although this huge dragon in front of him could be the dragon soul that he was about to awaken in his body, standing in front of such a huge creature, even Zhuowen, who was more courageous than others, could not help but be suppressed by the dragon's aura to the point that he almost knelt on the ground. The huge dragon stared at Zhuowen, and a trace of hesitation flashed in its golden eyes. In the end, it roared into the sky and swallowed the former in front of Zhuowen's shocked eyes. Zhuowen only felt his vision go black, and then his consciousness suddenly blurred. Following that, he lost consciousness. However, what Zhuowen did not notice was that 9 golden lines had appeared between his brows, shining brightly in the darkness. At the edge of the dragon transformation pool, Zhuoxiangding looked at the cocoon of light above the center of the dragon transformation pool, with a worried expression. His heart was filled with anticipation and worry. This cocoon of light had been in this state for 3 days. In these 3 days, Zhuoxiangding had not stopped guarding in front of the dragon transformation pool. I didn't expect Zhuowen's awakening process to be so long. I remember that when Xiaotian awakened the dragon soul, it only lasted for a day. However, Zhuowen took 3 days. Could it be that Zhuowen really has a chance of awakening a 9th grade armor soul? Just as Zhuoxiangding was pacing back and forth at the edge of the pool, he heard a clanging sound. The originally motionless cocoon of light above the dragon transformation pool suddenly cracked. Then the crack spread across the surface of the cocoon of light like a spider web. Finally, with a cracking sound, the cocoon of light broke into pieces under Zhuoxiangding's expectant gaze. Then, a deafening dragon roar suddenly sounded. Following that, the shadow of a huge dragon suddenly roared out of the dragon transformation pool. A pair of huge dragon eyes faintly stared at Zhuoxiangding, and with a roar it suddenly drilled between Zhuowen's brows. At the same time, 9 dazzling golden stripes appeared between Zhuowen's eyebrows. If one looked carefully, these 9 stripes were actually 9 dragon-shaped patterns. However, because they were too small, they looked like strips. Thump! Zhuoxiangding clenched his fists so hard that his bones cracked. His broad body began to tremble involuntarily. His pair of tiger eyes that were usually filled with majesty were now brimming with tears of excitement. God bless us, Ryuka. After 10,000 years, we finally have a descendant who has awakened a 9th grade dragon soul. Our Ryuka finally has a chance to rise. Haha. At this point, Zhuoxiangding suddenly burst into tears. Ever since this old man took over the family, he had inherited the unfulfilled wishes of his elders. That was to not forget the humiliation of having his family exterminated in the past, and to work hard to restore the family's glory. Back then, when Zhuoxiaotian awakened a 7th grade dragon soul, it gave this old man hope. However, the ruthless pursuit of the Blue Dragon Hall had completely destroyed this old man's hope. When the old man's will was depressed and he was about to give up, Zhuowen appeared. A 9th grade dragon soul. The dragon was the ruler of all things, and the dragon soul was above all armor souls. As long as a Ryuka descendant with a 9th grade dragon soul didn't die prematurely, they would definitely become the ruler of the Eastern continent. Every time such a descendant appeared, the Ryuka would enter a glorious era. Slowly opening his eyes, Zhuowen leaped up and landed firmly on the edge of the pool. At this moment he looked at his body with bright eyes. He felt that his entire body was filled with power, as if he had an inexhaustible amount of strength. Unknowingly, I reached the peak of the spirit-detecting realm. Before entering the dragon transformation pool, I was only at the early stage of the spirit-detecting realm. I didn't expect to reach the peak of the spirit-detecting realm in just 3 days. The dragon transformation pool actually has such an effect. Zhuowen's figure flashed and he turned into a shadow. His right hand formed a fist and smashed into the stone wall beside him like a pile driver. Boom! With a loud bang, the hard stone wall shattered inch by inch like tofu and turned into fine powder. Not only has the origin energy in my body increased, the strength of my body has also increased. Looking at the shattered stone wall, Zhuowen was in a daze. He felt like the strength of his body was comparable to when he used the first layer of Rampage. Zhuowen, you really surprised this old man. I didn't think you would really awaken a 9th grade dragon soul. Ha ha. Now release your 9th grade dragon soul. I wonder which famous true dragon soul you've awakened. Zhuoxiangding laughed very happily. His large hand kept patting Zhuowen's shoulder, and his face was filled with excitement. When Zhuowen heard this, the excitement on his face disappeared and his expression became a bit unnatural. What? You're still hiding the fact that you awakened a 9th grade dragon soul? Zhuoxiangding said with a bit of displeasure. Okay then. Zhuowen forced a smile. Then he tapped his forehead with his right hand, and a shadow suddenly appeared in front of Zhuoxiangding. Chapter 41. Damn you, Master Long. What appeared in front of Zhuoxiangding was a black puppy with a pair of drooping black ears. However, this puppy's eyes were dark gold in color, which did not match its body at all. Zhuowen, this is the dragon soul you've awakened? The corners of Zhuoxiangding's mouth twitched again as he stared at the black dog in front of him, who was sticking out its tongue like a dog. This silly black dog was actually a dragon soul, and a 9th grade dragon soul at that. Zhuoxiangding suddenly felt as if his worldview had been turned upside down. Hehe. Grandpa, this is indeed a dragon. Look at this guy's tail, it's a typical dragon's tail. It's just that the appearance might not be the same. If you don't believe me, I'll let it roar. Zhuowen said awkwardly. As he spoke, Zhuowen kept signaling the black puppy in his hand with his eyes. However, the puppy didn't seem to care much about Zhuowen. It just stuck out its tongue and licked its paws. Then it laid lazily on Zhuowen's palm and barked casually. Woof woof. Zhuoxiangding was speechless as he looked at the puppy in Zhuowen's hand. Although Zhuowen's awakened dragon soul left Zhuoxiangding speechless, it was still a 9th grade dragon soul. The old man was very happy in his heart. He knew that a 9th grade dragon soul couldn't be judged by common sense. Zhuoxiangding chatted with Zhuowen for a while. Through their conversation, he vaguely hinted that the responsibility of reviving the family would fall on Zhuowen's shoulders. Regarding this, Zhuowen didn't decline. After all, the Ryuka and the Blue Dragon Hall were like fire and water. Even if Zhuowen didn't take the initiative to provoke the Blue Dragon Hall, if they found out that he was a descendant of the Ryuka, the Blue Dragon Hall wouldn't let Zhuowen off the hook. Moreover, Zhuowen still needed to find Zhuoxiaotian. If it weren't for the jade pendant that Zhuoxiaotian left behind, Zhuowen would have already turned into a lonely ghost. Zhuowen valued this life-saving favor very much. Moreover, Zhuoxiaotian was his father. Logically speaking, Zhuoxiaotian wouldn't just sit by and watch. However, whether it was fighting against the Blue Dragon Hall or searching for Zhuoxiaotian's whereabouts, they both required great strength. Therefore, Zhuowen could only continue to increase his strength to complete these tasks. For now, these tasks were still too far away for Zhuowen. After that, the two left this place. When the two parted ways, Zhuoxiangding gave Zhuowen a brocade box. The shape of the brocade box was the same as the brocade box that Zhuowen placed the 3rd grade elixir in. In other words, this brocade box also contained a 3rd grade elixir. Regarding Zhuoxiangding's kind intentions, Zhuowen didn't hesitate to accept it. However, in his heart, he also felt a trace of acknowledgement towards this grandfather that he didn't have much of an impression of. After returning to the Hidden Dragon Pavilion's practice room, Zhuowen immediately closed the door. Then, he sat cross-legged on the bed and began to slowly calm the emotions in his heart. There were a lot of things that happened in this day. For Zhuowen, it could be considered a big impact. After completely calming down, Zhuowen's right hand lightly tapped and took out 2 brocade boxes from the Qingkuan bag at his waist. Looking at the brocade boxes in his hand, Zhuowen's originally calm eyes began to burn with passion. These 2 brocade boxes contained 2 priceless 3rd grade elixirs. 2 3rd grade elixirs should be able to refine 8 elixirs. Let's try it out first. Opening the brocade boxes, 2 yellow flowers filled with rich spiritual energy appeared before Zhuowen's eyes. This 3rd grade elixir was called the Sun Phoenix Flower. It was a spirit elixir with extreme heat and extreme yang energy. It was very helpful for Zhuowen who practiced fire attribute cultivation techniques. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. Then his right hand tapped between his eyebrows and instantly summoned the jade cauldron in his sea of consciousness. Without any hesitation, he threw the 2 sun phoenix flowers into the cauldron. Then, Zhuowen felt the energy in his body being absorbed by the jade cauldron as nutrients for refining elixirs. In the blink of an eye, the 2 third-grade elixirs turned into round elixirs. Opening the lid of the jade cauldron, 8 golden elixirs flew into Zhuowen's palm. Zhuowen's face revealed a trace of satisfaction. Because these elixirs were refined from the sun phoenix flower, Zhuowen named these 8 elixirs the Sun Phoenix Elixir. Just as Zhuowen was about to put the jade cauldron back into his eyebrows, his face suddenly changed. Then, his body trembled violently and a mouthful of blood spurted out. This guy actually dared to swallow my armor spirit? At the same time, in the depths of Zhuowen's sea of consciousness, the originally dull black dog's pair of golden eyes suddenly emitted a strange light. Then with a leap, it transformed into a black dragon that was thousands of feet long. Its huge dragon mouth abruptly sucked at the giant armor soul and sword shadow armor soul in the depths of the sea of consciousness. A strong suction force appeared from the dragon's mouth. The giant armor spirit was of the lowest quality and was the weakest. In an instant, it was swallowed by the dragon. The sword shadow armor spirit only lasted for a moment before being swallowed by the dragon. After swallowing the 2 armor spirits, the black dragon's pair of dragon eyes stared at the jade cauldron armor spirit that was floating outside its body. But what was strange was that the black dragon's eyes did not have the slightest trace of greed. Instead, there was a trace of sorrow and self-blame. This dragon lord has been asleep for 10,000 years. To think that I can see the supreme dragon cauldron again. I really don't know if this is fate? A low voice slowly floated out from the sea of consciousness. The voice contained a trace of complexity and sorrow. Damn your grandpa, Dragon Lord. You actually swallowed my armor spirit. I'll fight it out with you. Zhuowen's eyes flashed fiercely. The elemental energy in his right hand surged towards his forehead. He was actually willing to sacrifice himself to expel the dragon soul from his sea of consciousness. The black dragon looked at Zhuowen indifferently. With a light wave of its dragon claws, a huge force instantly pushed Zhuowen back a dozen steps. At the same time, Zhuowen was shocked to find that the elemental energy in his body seemed to have solidified and could not flow at all. A trace of cold sweat immediately flowed down Zhuowen's body. He did not expect the dragon soul to be so powerful. It was actually able to imprison him with just a wave of its hand. What made Zhuowen even more surprised was that the black dragon could actually speak. One had to know that in the Ryuka ancestral teachings, it was clearly mentioned that the dragon soul did not have a consciousness and could not speak the human language. The dragon soul's actions were all subservient to its master, even if it was a grade 9 dragon soul. But the black dragon soul in front of him was not only able to speak the human language, it even had its own consciousness and could think independently. This made Zhuowen feel inexplicably shocked. It seemed that the dragon soul in front of him was not simple. Kid, you don't have to look at this dragon lord like that. The fact that you were able to obtain the supreme dragon cauldron means that you and the cauldron are fated. As for devouring the armor soul in your sea of knowledge, this dragon lord is helping you. Otherwise, you won't even know how you died in the future. Fuck. You devoured my armor soul and still use such a dignified excuse? Your dragon skin is really thick. Hearing the black dragon boasting shamelessly in front of him, Zhuowen was so angry that he wanted to slam the table. Kid, do you really think that there is no problem with the armor soul obtained from the blood essence pill? From the looks of it, you must have eaten a lot of blood essence pills. I'm sure you can feel the remnant resentment in the blood essence pills. Zhuowen was stunned for a moment. He did not expect this strange dragon soul to know about the blood essence pills. And from the looks of it, it seemed to recognize the mysterious jade cauldron. The resentment has already been removed by the spirit-clearing pill that I refined. What does this have to do with my armor soul? Zhuowen's face darkened when he came to his senses. The ignorant are really fearless. Do you really think that the resentment is so easy to get rid of? Let me tell you, most of the resentment accumulated in the blood essence pill is hidden in the armor soul you obtained. As your strength increases, the resentment hidden in the armor soul will also become stronger. When that time comes, you will really be finished. The black dragon snorted and gently moved its dragon claws. The 2 armor souls that it had just devoured suddenly appeared on its claws. However, at this time the 2 armor souls had completely changed. Thick black gas gathered on their surface, and at the same time, many black faces were constantly roaring at Zhuowen. When Zhuowen saw the resentment gathered on the dragon claws, his face became extremely ugly. He knew that the black dragon's words were very likely to be true. I have helped you to refine the resentment on these 2 armor souls. Now I will return them to you. However, you can't eat the blood essence pill in the future. This kind of pill is very evil. If you eat too much of it, there may be some side effects. The black dragon's claws wiped the armor souls, and the black resentment on them was immediately removed. Then, it threw the 2 armor souls back into Zhuowen's sea of consciousness. Who are you? Aren't you the 9th grade dragon soul that I awakened? Looking at the armor souls that had returned to his sea of consciousness, Zhuowen sighed softly and then asked doubtfully, how can a mere 9th grade dragon soul be compared to me? However, you don't need to fish out my identity from my mouth. With your current strength, you are not qualified at all. If it weren't for the Supreme Dragon Cauldron, I wouldn't even care about you. However, seeing that you have awakened me, and that you are about to break through, I will lend you a hand. The black dragon leaped into Zhuowen's sea of consciousness again. Then it returned to its annoying black dog image. Its 2 short legs lightly jumped out of the space between Zhuowen's eyebrows and appeared in front of Zhuowen. Its pair of small claws crossed its chest, and its small eyes were full of an expression that said, "You brat, you have taken advantage of me." Obviously, the black dragon was related to the Jade Cauldron. However, the black dragon was very tight-lipped. Zhuowen could not get any useful information out of it, so he could only give up. Brat, sit properly. It is rare for me to help someone, so don't move. Xiao He waved its dragon claws, and Zhuowen immediately felt the vitality around the training room surge. Then, a huge amount of vitality poured into Zhuowen's body, as if it had been injected with chicken blood. Feeling the huge amount of vitality, Zhuowen did not dare to be negligent. He quickly sat down cross-legged and concentrated on refining the vitality that was pouring into his body. What kind of lousy place is this? The vitality is so thin. At this rate, this brat may not be able to break through after tonight. Damn it, it seems that I need to hit him hard. Xiao Hei's dragon eyes rolled around. Then it waved its little claws, and a black energy suddenly appeared in its little claws. Then it poured into Zhuowen's dubhe. As the black energy poured in, Zhuowen's body couldn't help but tremble. Then, an enormous aura suddenly rose from within his body. At the same time, a series of crackling sounds rang out from within his body in a rhythmic manner. Chapter 42. Advancing to the soul transformation realm. Early in the morning, a ray of warm sunlight shone onto the body of a young man sitting cross-legged on a bed. At this moment, the young man suddenly opened his eyes. A sharp aura suddenly erupted from his thin body. Then, a milky white light surrounded the young man's body, making him look extremely dazzling, releasing origin energy to cover the entire body. This is the unique sign of the soul transformation realm. Kid's talent is not bad. At least you didn't waste this dragon lord's essence. A Xiao He dragon flew over and sat on Zhuowen's shoulder as it spoke in a lazy tone. Zhuowen's face couldn't help but reveal a happy expression. It has to be known that he was only at the peak of the spirit detecting realm yesterday. Due to the dragon transformation pool's rebirth and marrow cleansing, his cultivation rose to the peak of the spirit detecting realm. Then, with the help of the Xiao He dragon, he forcefully advanced to the soul transformation realm. If anyone knew that Zhuowen only used a day to directly advance from the initial stage of the spirit detecting realm to the soul transformation realm, they would definitely be shocked to the point of being dumbfounded. Xiao He, thank you very much. If it wasn't for you, perhaps I wouldn't have been able to advance to the soul transformation realm so quickly. Due to the Xiao He dragon helping him to break through, Zhuowen had completely let down his guard against this unknown Xiao He dragon. Moreover, yesterday, Zhuowen also experienced the terror of the Xiao He dragon. He knew that if the Xiao He dragon wanted to harm him, it would be as simple as pinching a finger. Xiao He? Mother, call me Dragon Lord. Dragon Lord, do you know? Xiaohei Dragon shouted in exasperation. Zhuowen directly ignored Xiaohei's protest. Instead, he frowned slightly and said, You said that the blood essence pill is very strange. However, the pill formula in the Jade Cauldron requires armor souls to exchange. Right now, other than the blood essence pill, there seems to be no other way to obtain armor souls. After Xiaohei scolded a few times, she finally calmed down and said calmly, The Supreme Dragon Cauldron has gathered the pill formulas of countless alchemists, and the information of the pill formulas needs a medium to carry it, and this medium is soul power. You're not strong enough and your soul power is even lower. Naturally, you can't look at the pill recipe's information at will. That's why I can only use the shattered armor soul in your body as a medium for the pill recipe. But this Dragon Lord is different. Although this Dragon Lord's body is damaged and only my spirit body is left, I can still easily use my soul power to look through these pill formulas. Xiaohei sat on Zhuowen's head and placed her little paws on her waist like an elder as she spoke arrogantly. When Zhuowen heard this, his face immediately lit up with joy. The news of Zhuowen defeating Zhuo Tian and becoming the number one of the Zhuo family naturally spread like wildfire. Young Master Zhuowen's name is very resounding right now. With a cultivation at the spirit detecting realm, he defeated Zhuo Tian and became the number one person of the Zhuo family. Young Master Zhuowen has such a cultivation at such a young age. You can be considered a genius with great talent. You don't need to be so polite. You should be here for the ascension pill, right? I presume you've already gathered all the ingredients. If you've already gathered all the ingredients, I'll go with you and help you refine the ascension pill. Zhuowen didn't become complacent because of Black Rose's praise. Instead, he spoke with a calm expression. Black Rose also looked at the young man in front of her with a strange expression. Unexpectedly, he wasn't arrogant or impatient in the face of such praise. She couldn't help but think even more highly of him. Then I'll have to thank young Master Zhuowen. In fact, we're still at the same place. Yesterday, our Flowing Flame mercenary group obtained some goods, so we came to the market to sell them. After Black Rose spoke, she left the hall and Zhuowen followed without any hesitation. However, Zhuowen couldn't help but keep looking at Black Rose's curvaceous body. Black Rose's body was absolutely perfect in Zhuowen's eyes. Following behind her was definitely a pleasure for Zhuowen. Soon, the two of them arrived at the market where Black Rose's Flowing Flame mercenary group was. With the appearance of Black Rose, there was quite a bit of commotion in the market. Just as Black Rose was about to lead Zhuowen to the Flowing Flame mercenary group's carriage, a figure suddenly appeared in front of the two of them. Then this figure struck a pose that he thought was very handsome, but his eyes couldn't help but slide towards certain parts of Black Rose's body. This figure was a young man around 20 years old. His face was a little pale and he gave off a gloomy feeling. Behind the young man stood two strong men like iron towers. Lady Black Rose, I haven't been to the market for 2 months and I've missed you so much. This is a small token of my appreciation. I hope you can accept it. The young man stepped in front of Black Rose and took out an exquisite brocade box from his bosom and handed it to Black Rose. With a click, he opened the brocade box, revealing the item inside. A golden fruit lay quietly in the brocade box. From the intense spirit chi it emitted, one could tell that this golden fruit was definitely not ordinary. Grade 2 spirit medicine, metal spirit fruit. Someone in the market recognized the spirit medicine in the brocade box and couldn't help but exclaim. Following this exclamation, the onlookers in the market suddenly went into an uproar. Many people stared at the metal spirit fruit in the brocade box in the young man's hand. Chapter 43. Wang Zheng's Provocation. Wang Zheng. This person is actually the second young master of the Wang clan, Wang Zheng. No wonder he could casually take out a second-tier spiritual medicine as a gift. The Wang family is the head of the 3 big families in Rattan Armor City. They are very powerful, and I've heard that Wang Zheng is very lecherous and domineering. The number of women who have been defiled by him is not small. Keep your voice down. If second young master Wang hears you, you'll be in big trouble. However, the young man beside Black Rose will be in big trouble. Nothing good will come out of provoking second young Master Wang. As soon as the young man's words left his mouth, it immediately caused an uproar among the onlookers in the city square. Following which, they all looked at Zhuowen with pity in their eyes. Zhuowen furrowed his brows. The elemental energy in his body poured out violently. With a shake of his shoulders, he broke free from Wang Zheng's restraints. He then stared coldly at Wang Zheng. From the surrounding discussions, Zhuowen also knew that the young man in front of him was actually the second young master of the Wang family, Wang Zheng. Zhuowen had also heard of this Wang Zheng before. He was considered a genius in the Wang family, but this person's reputation was not very good. He liked to go around messing around. No wonder Black Rose showed a look of disgust towards him. Originally, Zhuowen was not someone who would meddle in other people's business. However, Wang Zheng's accumulated anger from being rejected by Black Rose actually wanted to vent on Zhuowen. This made Zhuowen very unhappy. His originally delicate eyes narrowed into a dangerous arc. Who do you think you are? What right do you have to tell me to stay away from her? Moreover, this market square belongs to the Zhuo family. Is your Wang family here to cause trouble? Zhuowen looked straight at Wang Zheng. His mouth slightly curled as he mocked. Wang Zheng's face suddenly turned green and white. He didn't think that the young man in front of him, whom he had always ignored, would have such guts. He clearly knew that he was a member of the Wang family, yet he still dared to challenge him. Good. Brat, you really have guts. You are the first person who knows my name and dares to speak to me like this. However, you should know that people like this usually die early. The two of you capture this brat. I want him to have a taste of a life worse than death. Wang Zheng's face was very gloomy. He gave a look to the two tower-like burly men behind him and looked at Zhuowen with a face full of ridicule. The two burly men also understood his meaning. Zhuowen with a look of pity. And Zhuowen. This discovery. Everyone began to worry. Zhuowen. After all, Zhuowen looked like a 15-year-old youth. At such a young age, his cultivation couldn't be that high. He had no chance of winning against two spirit-detecting realm experts. However, the next scene caused everyone to be flabbergasted. The skinny Zhuowen actually casually threw out two punches. After that, an extremely powerful fluctuation instantly spread out from his fists. After that, the two robust men actually spat out blood and were sent flying back under everyone's gazes. Plop! A muffled sound echoed across the square. Then everyone saw the two burly men fall unconscious on the ground. Looking at the two unconscious brawny men on the ground, everyone's gazes once again converged on the delicate-looking young man. At this moment, the gazes they used to look at Zhuowen had changed. Black Rose also revealed a strange expression. Although she knew that Zhuowen had been in the limelight during the family competition, she had heard that his cultivation was only at the spirit-detecting realm. She didn't think that he would be able to deal with two spirit-detecting realm cultivators so easily. This was outside of Black Rose's expectations. However, Zhuowen had been targeted by Wang Zheng because of her, so Black Rose felt a bit guilty. She stepped forward and blocked Zhuowen behind her. Wang Zheng, don't go too far. Do you know who this person is? He is the Zhuo family's third young master, Zhuowen. Don't you think you're going too far by attacking someone from the Zhuo family in their territory? Black Rose's words caused an uproar in the square. The scattered gazes all gathered on Zhuowen. They didn't think that the youth in front of them would be the Zhuo family who had been in the limelight during the family competition yesterday. Zhuowen. So he is Zhuowen. I heard that although he is only at the spirit-detecting realm, his strength is comparable to a soul transformation realm cultivator. Even the Zhuo family's #1 disciple, Zhuotian, was not his match. Heroes truly come from the youth. Young Master Zhuowen looks like he is only 15 years old, but he has such a cultivation. This talent is truly terrifying. Hearing the discussions around him, Wang Zheng's face immediately darkened. At the same time, he glanced at the two unconscious subordinates on the ground. Wang Zheng's face became even more unsightly. No wonder you are so arrogant at such a young age. So you are the Zhuo family's third young master. I heard that you used to carry the title of trash in the Zhuo family, eating and waiting for death. Now it seems that you have turned over a new leaf. However, so what if you defeated Zhuotian? Zhuotian is just a piece of trash who has just entered the soul transformation realm. I was lucky enough to reach the middle stage of the soul transformation realm a month ago. As Wang Zheng spoke, a strong wave of energy instantly spread out from his body, following which, vigorous yuan power immediately wrapped around his entire body. It was as if a white veil had been draped over his body. Ever since your Zhuo family Zhuo Shaotian disappeared, there hasn't been any other decent geniuses. In the past few years, the Zhuo family has always been at the bottom of the rankings. In our Wang family's eyes, your Zhuo family's participation in the Battle of the City Square is just to give us the territory of the City Square. In the Battle of the City Square half a year later, your Zhuo family's result will be the same. This City Square will soon change owners. Since you are now the Zhuo family's #1 genius, then do you dare to accept my challenge? Powerful energy spread out from Wang Zheng's body. At this moment, he looked down at Zhuowen with undisguised disdain in his eyes. Wang Zheng, you have the nerve to issue a challenge? Zhuowen's cultivation is only at the spirit detecting realm, and you are already at the middle stage of the soul transformation realm. Don't you feel ashamed bullying the weak like this? Zhuowen, let's go. There is no need to pay attention to this person. Hearing Wang Zheng's shameless words, Black Rose's beautiful face was full of resentment. She turned around and was about to grab Zhuowen's arm to leave. However, what surprised her was that Zhuowen actually broke free from her jade-like hand and took a step forward to stand in front of Wang Zheng. Looking straight ahead, he said, "You will regret your words. I accept your challenge." Zhuowen's words caused an uproar in the crowd. Many people looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. Although Zhuowen had defeated Zhuotian in the family competition yesterday, Zhuotian was only a martial artist who had just entered the soul transformation realm. Wang Zheng, on the other hand, was already at the middle stage of the soul transformation realm. His strength was far stronger than Zhuotian's. Now that Zhuowen had accepted Wang Zheng's challenge, many people shook their heads and sighed. They all thought that Zhuowen was too young and impetuous. It was unwise to accept a challenge at this time. Zhuowen, do you know the difference between the middle stage of the soul transformation realm and the early stage of the soul transformation realm? Although there is only a difference of 1 level, the difference in strength is very large. You may be able to defeat Zhuotian, but against a middle stage soul transformation realm martial artist, you still won't have the slightest advantage. Black Rose was a little anxious. She hurriedly came in front of Zhuowen and earnestly advised him. Zhuowen smiled and said, "Don't worry. I know what I'm doing. I don't put this Wang Zheng in my eyes." When Black Rose heard this, she was so angry that she stomped her foot. This brat's words were too arrogant. A little spirit-detecting realm martial artist didn't even put a soul transformation realm martial artist in his eyes. Black Rose really didn't know what to say to Zhuowen. Zhuowen's words weren't said softly, so the surrounding people heard it clearly. They couldn't help but shake their heads and sigh. Zhuowen was really young and impulsive. Wang Zheng's expression became even more gloomy. The corner of his mouth cracked open and he sneered. "I hope that when you are beaten to the point where you can't fight back, you can still say these words. Or else." Before Wang Zheng could finish speaking, he suddenly stopped. Moreover, his eyeballs bulged as he looked in front of him with some disbelief. At this moment, a powerful energy fluctuation suddenly came from Zhuowen's body. Then, the surging energy was like a wave that filled Zhuowen's entire body. Just like Wang Zheng, it covered his entire body and formed a white muslin robe. Soul transformation realm. No one had expected that Zhuowen had actually reached the soul transformation stage. Cries of disbelief erupted from their mouths, followed closely by cheers that rang out one after another. After all, this market was the Zhuo family's territory. Therefore, most of the people in the market were loyal supporters of the Zhuo family. Originally, many people were worried that Zhuowen would suffer a great loss if he accepted Wang Zheng's challenge. Now that they saw that Zhuowen's cultivation was actually not inferior to Wang Zheng's, they all let out a sigh of relief in their hearts. Among them, no one was more shocked than Black Rose. It has to be known that in the family competition yesterday, Zhuowen was the one who defeated Zhuotian at the spirit-detecting realm. However, today Zhuowen had actually reached the soul transformation realm. In other words, Zhuowen had only spent a day to advance from the spirit-detecting realm to the soul transformation realm. Thinking of this possibility, Black Rose's heart was indescribably shocked. Her beautiful eyes looked at the somewhat thin figure not far away, and a trace of imperceptible splendor flashed through her eyes. "Wang Zheng, I said that I would make you regret it," Zhuowen said as he looked at Wang Zheng with a calm gaze. "Hehe. Not bad. However, you want to contend against me with a mere early-stage soul transformation realm? You're really a fool's dream. In a moment I'll let you know what regret is." Zhuowen's sudden display of strength at the soul transformation realm caused Wang Zheng's expression to change slightly. However, when he discovered that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the initial stage of the soul transformation realm, a trace of ruthlessness appeared on his face. Whether it's a fool's dream or not, we'll only know after we try. Chapter 44. The Might of One Punch. You overestimate yourself. Zhuowen snorted coldly. He took a step forward and an extremely sharp aura erupted from his body, after which, his 5 fingers clenched into a fist and he swung it forward. The huge fist brought along a strong gust of wind as it whizzed towards Zhuowen. What caused the crowd to be shocked was that Wang Zheng's ordinary punch was actually able to faintly hear the sound of a sonic boom. Moreover, the surging yuan power even exploded in the air. Who would have thought that Wang Zheng's punch would be so terrifying? Even the onlookers could not help but feel a sense of trepidation. Zhuowen's eyes turned cold. He didn't show any signs of stopping, but he secretly activated his secret technique, Violent Blood Beast Body. A faint blood-red color appeared on his arms. Bang! When the 2 fists collided, a terrifying gale immediately formed a hurricane between the 2 of them. Some of the surrounding people who were not strong enough were blown back by this hurricane. When the 2 collided, the smile on Wang Zheng's face suddenly froze. Then his face turned green and white, and finally his face turned red. A muffled groan sounded. Under everyone's shocked gazes, Wang Zheng actually took over a dozen steps back. He only stopped after drawing a deep depression on the ground. His gaze was extremely gloomy as he looked at Zhuowen, who was standing steadily like a mountain not far away. When the crowd saw that Zhuowen was standing at the same spot like an old monk in meditation, while Wang Zheng had been pushed back more than 10 steps, anyone could see that in this exchange Zhuowen had the absolute upper hand. At this moment, the entire arena fell into silence. But after this silence lasted for a while, the crowd suddenly burst into cheers and applause. "Zhuowen, today I want you dead." Hearing the cheers around him, Wang Zheng's face was burning hot. He shouted loudly and pointed at his forehead with his right hand. Instantly, he took out his armor soul. Wang Zheng's armor soul was in the shape of a tiger. Its entire body was covered in ink-black fur. The moment the black tiger appeared, it roared towards the sky. Its ferocious tiger eyes were fixed on Zhuowen. Tigers roar in the forest. Zhuowen stared viciously at Zhuowen. With a wave of his right hand, the black tiger's body suddenly expanded to about 2 meters. Waves of black energy spread from the surface of the black tiger's body. A pair of tiger eyes stared coldly at Zhuowen and suddenly pounced towards Zhuowen. "It's time to end this." Zhuowen's expression was extremely calm as he gazed at the black tiger that was dashing towards him. Subsequently, under the astounded gazes of everyone present, Zhuowen still merely threw out a simple punch. Moreover, there wasn't the slightest fluctuation of origin energy within his fist. Everyone could naturally feel that Zhuowen's fist did not have the slightest fluctuation of elemental energy. Their faces were instantly filled with excitement. They did not understand why this youth was still so arrogant when Wang Zheng had already used his soul technique. Why is this guy so arrogant? He actually wants to use his physical body to resist Wang Zheng's soul skill? Black Rose also felt Zhuowen's intentions. She could not help but cry out in alarm. Her beautiful eyes contained a trace of worry as she looked at the back of the youth in front of her. Wang Zheng's fierce eyes suddenly revealed a trace of joy. He whispered to himself, "Arrogant brat. He actually wants to use his physical body to resist my soul skill. Later, he won't even know how he died." Wang Zheng was very clear about the power of his tiger's roar in the mountain forest. Its power was enough to defeat a middle-stage soul transformation martial artist. Although Wang Zheng was a little shocked that he had suffered a loss at the hands of Zhuowen, Zhuowen was after all only at the early stage of the soul transformation realm. He believed that his attack was enough to instantly kill Zhuowen. Just as Wang Zheng was fantasizing about Zhuowen being blasted into smithereens by his attack, an unforgettable scene appeared. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up into a mocking smile. Then, his legs bounced off and his entire body flew towards the huge tiger like a cannonball. No one expected that Zhuowen would not only not use the elemental energy in his body when facing the black tiger, but also take the initiative to fight the huge tiger head-on. Everyone's eyes fell into a daze the moment Zhuowen flew. At this moment, everyone's thoughts were about whether Zhuowen's brain had been flooded with water. Not only did he vainly try to use his physical body to resist the soul skill, he also took the initiative to attack without dodging. This kind of shocking behavior directly stunned everyone. In contrast to everyone's surprise, Zhuowen, who was in the air, was extremely calm. All they saw was Zhuowen's muscles suddenly tensing up. Then, blood-colored lines spread out from Zhuowen's body. A thick smell of blood also emitted from Zhuowen's body. First heaven of Berserk. With a low roar, Zhuowen suddenly appeared on top of the giant tiger's head. His hand, which was not very thick, pressed down on the tiger's head. The bloodline on his hand suddenly exploded, and a powerful force immediately filled his arm. Pung! The huge tiger that was much taller than Zhuowen actually knelt down with a plop just because of Zhuowen's push. Then Zhuowen fiercely smashed a fist on the tiger's head. The blood-colored lines on his arm exploded again. The strong force instantly set off a violent gust of wind and fiercely smashed onto the huge tiger's head, only to hear a mournful cry. The huge tiger's head that was as big as a person was actually directly smashed apart by Zhuowen's fist. Then the huge tiger slowly disappeared in front of everyone's eyes, turning into nothingness. Looking at the huge tiger that was smashed apart by Zhuowen's fist, everyone's eyes were dazed. One punch. With just one punch, Wang Zheng's soul skill, tiger roaring in the forest, was blasted into smithereens. Furthermore, this punch didn't contain the slightest bit of elemental energy. Furthermore, Zhuowen didn't even use his armor soul. It was a simple punch. With his soul skill broken, Wang Zheng immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body retreated a dozen steps before he stopped. Furthermore, there was a look of horror and hatred on his face as he looked at Zhuowen and roared, "How is this possible? How can your body be so strong? I don't believe it. There are many things that you don't believe in. Now get out of Zhuo family's market. Otherwise, I'll make sure you stay here forever." Zhuowen took a step forward. His entire body was filled with a strong aura, and there was a hint of killing intent in his eyes. Wang Zheng had clearly sensed the deep killing intent in the depths of Zhuowen's eyes. His entire body involuntarily trembled. His gaze was somewhat venomous as he glanced at Zhuowen. After leaving behind some vicious words, he left with his tail between his legs. "Zhuowen, remember this, my big brother will avenge me today. In the battle for the market half a year later, our Wang family will win all of your Zhuo family's markets. When that time comes, let's see how your Zhuo family will survive in Rotten Armor City." Looking at Wang Zheng's back as he left with his tail between his legs, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with killing intent. Just now, with his strength, he could have killed Wang Zheng. However, if he did so, it would definitely cause the Wang family to shed all pretenses and start a war with the Zhuo family. Among the three big families in Rotten Armor City, the Wang family was the strongest. The Zhuo family was the weakest. Most importantly, the Zhuo family and the Wang family had a very bad relationship. If the two families started a war, the Zhuo family would definitely be at a disadvantage. As Wang Zheng left with his tail between his legs, the surrounding people once again burst into intense applause. At this moment, everyone's eyes couldn't help but carry a trace of respect. The strong were respected no matter where they went. The strength that Zhuowen displayed had already gained everyone's recognition. Black Rose, who was originally worried about Zhuowen, now had a very complicated expression. She also didn't think that Zhuowen's strength was actually this strong. His cultivation was clearly at the early stage of the soul transformation realm, but he was able to defeat Wang Zheng, who was at the middle stage of the soul transformation realm, in one move. Her beautiful eyes carefully sized up Zhuowen. Black Rose became more and more certain that this little man in front of her was filled with mysteries. And these mysteries were actually invisibly attracting her, making her constantly want to get closer to this little man and dig out all his secrets. "Miss Black Rose, is there something dirty on my face? Why do you keep staring at me?" A clear voice suddenly sounded, interrupting Black Rose's contemplation. When she raised her head and saw Zhuowen's expression that was like a smile, yet not a smile, her charming face actually turned red. "You little brat, you can be considered to have some ability to actually defeat Wang Zheng. However, you have to be careful of his big brother, Wang Meng. I heard that Wang Meng's cultivation has already reached the Nirvana realm. When the time comes, you have to be careful if you meet him." Black Rose secretly glanced at Zhuowen and said in a somewhat gentle tone, "Nirvana realm? And I got it. Now I will help you refine the imminent void pill first. I think you are also a little impatient," Zhuowen said with a smile. When Black Rose heard this, a ray of light suddenly burst out from her beautiful eyes. Then, she hurriedly led Zhuowen to the carriage used by their mercenary group. The medicinal herbs are all in the carriage. The space of the carriage is also very spacious. You can refine it in peace. I will stand guard outside for you. No one will disturb you. Black Rose rather politely pulled up the curtain of the carriage. Zhuowen immediately saw all kinds of medicinal herbs in the carriage. At a glance, he could see that they were all medicinal herbs needed to refine the imminent void pill. You must not let anyone disturb me. Otherwise, when the time comes, there is a possibility that all my efforts will be in vain." Zhuowen had a rare serious expression on his face as he instructed. Then, he entered the carriage without saying a word. Black Rose could also feel the seriousness in Zhuowen's eyes. She nodded solemnly and concentrated all her attention on the surroundings of the carriage. If there was even the slightest sign of trouble, she would not hesitate to make a move. Just like this, Black Rose's expression was tense as she stood guard around the carriage for about 2 hours. The curtain of the carriage, which was originally very quiet, was suddenly lifted by someone. Then, Zhuowen's delicate and handsome face was suddenly revealed. "Has the imminent void pill been refined?" Black Rose hurriedly came in front of Zhuowen and asked with a rather nervous expression. At this moment, Zhuowen's face was somewhat pale. Looking at the nervous Black Rose, Zhuowen smiled slightly and handed a porcelain bottle to Black Rose. He said, "Fortunately, I did not disappoint you. There are a total of 3 imminent void pills in this porcelain bottle. It should be enough to help you successfully break through." After receiving the porcelain bottle, Black Rose's charming face suddenly revealed an ecstatic expression. She could not help but hug Zhuowen in her arms and said happily, "Brother Zhuowen, I really have to thank you. If I can successfully break through this time, then I will owe you a favor." Chapter 45. Chapter 45. 10,000-Year Black Ice Pool. Black Rose, who was holding Zhuowen in her arms because of ecstasy, also realized that her behavior was inappropriate. Just as she was about to separate Zhuowen, she sensitively felt that Zhuowen kept rubbing against her in her arms. An unprecedented feeling of numbness spread from the tip of Zhuowen's toes to his scalp. A pleasant moan sounded from her cherry lips. Her voice was clear and melodious like the chirping of a lark. It entered Zhuowen's ears. Raising his head gently, Zhuowen was surprised to find that Black Rose's face was a little blurred, and that pair of moving watery eyes were a little hazy. At this moment, Black Rose was extremely seductive, and she was moaning continuously. Black Rose's seductive state immediately attracted Zhuowen. A wave of lust rose from his lower abdomen. His restless hands could not help but wander up and down Black Rose's alluring body. Perhaps because Zhuowen had used too much force and hurt Black Rose, the blurred look in her beautiful eyes gradually faded and became clear again. When Black Rose woke up, she found that she had unknowingly stuck close to Zhuowen. Black Rose's pretty face immediately flushed red like a ripe apple when she saw herself in such an embarrassing position with Zhuowen. However, she was also a little flustered. Zhuowen's hands were still restlessly groping around. With a soft snort, Black Rose's origin energy burst forth and gently pushed away Zhuowen, who was in close contact with her. Her beautiful eyes looked at the young man in front of her with a complicated expression. She felt that her heart, which had been sealed for a long time, seemed to have a crack when facing this young man. Little brother Zhuowen, did you feel very comfortable just now? But it's not so easy to take advantage of big sister. After restraining the complicated emotions in her heart, Black Rose winked at Zhuowen and said coquettishly, "Little demoness." Zhuowen cursed in his heart. Looking at the seductive smile on Black Rose's face, Zhuowen could not help but feel an evil fire rising in his lower abdomen. This plump woman in front of him really knew how to tease. Although Zhuowen was cursing in his heart, he still laughed dryly and said, "Just now, you were the one who took the initiative to hug me." Black Rose's beautiful face was startled when she heard this, and then she actually laughed out loud. Her beautiful eyes looked up and down Zhuowen, and her face suddenly became serious. "Big sister doesn't want to joke with you. To thank you for refining the face void pill for me, Big sister will tell you an important piece of information?" Zhuowen's brows raised. He did not expect that Black Rose, who was still talking and laughing just a moment, to show such a serious expression. It seemed like this so-called information was very important. "Then tell me about it," Zhuowen said calmly. "Little brother Zhuowen, you're really calm." "Then I'll tell you. A month ago, my men and I found a hidden cave in the Annihilation Forest. After several explorations, we found that there was an ice pool in the cave. The ice pool isn't anything special. Is this the important information you were talking about?" Zhuowen frowned slightly. He was not unfamiliar with the ice pool. The ice pool was a kind of pool filled with ice demon cold air. The ice demon cold air in this kind of pool was necessary for the cultivation of an expert in the Yin Void realm. This was because once a warrior's cultivation reached the Yin Void realm, they would have the ability to condense void armor. The so-called void armor was actually a kind of armor made of energy. This kind of armor had extremely strong defensive power and could reduce the impact of the outside world. The ice demon cold air in the ice pool was necessary to condense the void armor. Moreover, this ice demon cold air could be turned into one's own strength to attack. It could be said that it was both offensive and defensive. Because of this symbolic void armor, all the warriors in the Heavenly Armor continent believed that only warriors who had truly stepped into the Yin Void realm were real warriors. Without entering the Yin Void realm, even those at the peak of the Nirvana realm would not be recognized by other warriors. The void armor's defensive power was very strong. Even if a warrior at the peak of the Nirvana realm used all his strength, he might not be able to break through the void armor's defense. This was why many warriors yearned to break through to the Yin Void realm. In order to condense the void armor, one needed the ice demonic chi that was nurtured in the ice pool. There were several ice pools in the Zhuo family. If the disciples in the family broke through to the Yin Void realm, they would be qualified to enter the ice pool to condense the void armor. This ice pool is not an ordinary ice pool. It is a 10,000 years mysterious ice pool that can condense ice demon cold beads. Aren't you interested in this kind of news? Black Rose played with her hands and said jokingly. Hearing this, Zhuowen's heart suddenly trembled. He involuntarily stood up with a thump and couldn't help but exclaim, "What? It's a 10,000 years mysterious ice pool?" The ice pools were divided into different grades. The grades were determined by the age of the ice pool. Even in the Zhuo family, the highest grade ice pool was only about 500 years old. Perhaps only the big forces in the Qingxian Empire had ice pools like the 10,000 years mysterious ice pool. The higher the level of the ice demon cold chi, the more powerful the void armor a warrior could condense. Then, the strength of the warrior in the Yin Void realm would also be more powerful. It was said that the void armor condensed from the ice demon cold chi in the mysterious ice pool had extremely strong defensive power. It could even withstand a full blow from an expert of the Yang realm. However, Zhuowen didn't expect that such a strange item like the 10,000 years mysterious ice pool would appear in an unknown remote city in the empire. This surprised Zhuowen. "Are you serious? But you are willing to share such important information with me, instead of secretly keeping it for yourself. It seems that you are in some trouble." Zhuowen didn't lose his mind because of this shocking news. After thinking for a while, he calmly looked at Black Rose and said unhurriedly. Black Rose was a little surprised by Zhuowen's lack of arrogance. Sometimes she really wondered if this 15-year-old boy in front of her was an old monster in disguise. The maturity and experience he showed was really not something a 15-year-old boy should have. Brother Zhuowen is a smart person. Since this is the case, I won't beat around the bush. It's like this. Although our mercenary group found the secret cave, there was a meta beast guarding it. Because of this, our mercenary group lost a few brothers. Speaking of this, Black Rose's beautiful eyes revealed a rare trace of coldness. Meta beast guarding it? How's the strength of that meta beast? Zhuowen asked curiously. He looked as if he had expected this. Last time I fought with that meta beast. According to my estimation, it should be an unranked meta beast. However, its strength was very close to a level 1 meta beast. If it wasn't for the fact that we had more people, I might not have been able to come back. Speaking of this, Black Rose's face revealed a lingering fear. Obviously, the battle situation must have been very dangerous. Its strength was close to a level 1 meta beast. This level of meta beast strength isn't something an ordinary Nirvana realm martial artist can handle. Could it be that you're so confident that you can kill this meta beast with me? You should know that my cultivation is only at the soul transformation realm. I'm just an ordinary character. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes and said indifferently. How could a warrior who could defeat Wang Zheng at the middle stage of soul transformation realm be an ordinary person? Also, looking at your appearance, you should have some hidden cards. In this case, your real combat strength isn't weak. At least, it should be comparable to a warrior at the early stage of Nirvana realm. Today, with your near void pill, I should be able to break through to the Een void realm. At that time, with your strength that isn't weaker than a Nirvana realm martial artist and the strength of our mercenary group, I think we should be able to take down that meta beast. I wonder if Brother Zhuowen will agree to help us. Black Rose said with a smile. I can help you, but I have a condition. That is, I must have a share of the Ice Demon Pearl. If you agree to this condition, I will help you. What do you think? Zhuowen smiled faintly and ignored Black Rose's hot body. Instead, he looked straight into her eyes and said seriously. Upon hearing this, Black Rose's face suddenly changed. Zhuowen was simply asking for too much. One should know that the most important part of the mysterious ice pool was the Ice Demon Pearl. The Ice Demon Pearl could only be formed in the ice pool that was more than 10,000 years old. The Ice Demon Pearl in the Ice Demon Pearl was definitely of the highest quality in the mysterious ice pool. However, looking at the youth in front of her with a faint smile, Black Rose could only clench her teeth and said fiercely, Okay, but in the process of killing that meta beast, you must use all your strength. You can't skimp on the job. Don't worry. It's a matter of course to take someone's money and solve their problem. But when do you plan to go to the stone cave? Black Rose snorted and said, Tomorrow at noon, we will still gather at this place. When you arrive, my people will bring you to us. Tonight, I will prepare to break through to the Een void realm. After I succeed, we will have more confidence in dealing with that meta beast. Upon hearing this, Zhuowen nodded and said, In that case, let's meet again tomorrow. After the two of them chatted for a while, Zhuowen bade farewell to Black Rose and left the market. Looking at Zhuowen's back that could not be considered strong, a rare trace of disappointment appeared on Black Rose's pretty face. She could only watch in a daze as night gradually fell. In the pavilion, Zhuowen slowly opened his eyes from his cultivation. If what Black Rose said is true, then the meta beast in the stone cave must be very strong. Although my strength is now comparable to a Nirvana realm warrior, I can at most resist the strength of an early Nirvana realm warrior. If it is a middle Nirvana realm warrior, I will be defeated. In order to make it easier to seize the mysterious ice pool tomorrow, I have to improve my strength. But how can I improve my strength? Zhuowen sighed softly and frowned. Time was really too short. He only had one day. It was very difficult for him to increase his strength in such a short time. Just as Zhuowen was frowning, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly appeared in Zhuowen's mind. Chapter 46. The Dragon Aura of the Five-Clawed Golden Dragon. What method? Zhuowen asked ecstatically. With a swish, Xiao Hei flew out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows and landed on his shoulder. She crossed her little paws and said slowly, Looking at your body's condition, you should have cultivated the primordial roaring dragon fist before, right? You just broke through, so it's impossible for you to break through again in such a short amount of time. The only way is to increase the power of the primordial roaring dragon fist. Right now, my primordial roar dragon fist has reached the 6th dragon roar realm. However, it's getting harder and harder. It's been a few months now and I haven't been able to break through again. However, grandfather once said that if I awakened the dragon soul in my body, I would be able to unleash the true power of the primordial roaring dragon fist. Unfortunately, at this point, Zhuowen sized up Xiao He, who was like a black dog, and sighed helplessly. Brat, why are you looking at me like that? How is this Lord Dragon inferior to those lowly dragon souls? You should know that this Lord Dragon's rank is much higher than those so-called rank 9 dragon souls in Ryuka. If those dragon souls can increase the power of the primordial roaring dragon fist, then this Lord Dragon can naturally increase the power of the primordial roaring dragon fist. Xiao He instantly became flustered and exasperated. She scratched her Xiao He's head with her little claws as she glared at Zhuowen with resentment. It seems that if I don't show you what this Lord Dragon is capable of, you won't know how powerful this Lord Dragon is. To tell you the truth, the immemorial dragon roar fist is a fist technique created by an ancient expert by imitating a true dragon. Only those with a trace of dragon energy in their body can unleash the true power of this fist technique. Dragon Chi? But now I don't have this so-called Dragon Chi. Aren't you talking nonsense? Zhuowen said doubtfully. You idiot, you have a supreme treasure like the supreme dragon cauldron in your body. How could you lack Dragon Chi? You should know that the supreme dragon cauldron was a treasure that suppressed thousands of dragons in the ancient times. Although it is now damaged beyond recognition, there is still some Dragon Chi left inside. It's just that you have no way to extract this Dragon Chi. Xiao He gently knocked on Zhuowen's head and said indifferently, Oh, I didn't expect that the Jade Cauldron would contain Dragon Chi. Xiao He, from the looks of it, you should be able to extract the Dragon Chi from it. Xiao He, since you're so powerful, why don't you help me? Zhuowen rubbed his hands and smiled fawningly. Of course I have to help you. After all, whether or not this Lord Dragon can recover in the future depends on you. The stronger you become, the greater the chances of this Lord Dragon recovering. Alright, take out the Supreme Dragon Cauldron first. I will extract a trace of Dragon Chi from the cauldron first. After Xiao He finished speaking, Zhuowen didn't waste any time. He pointed at his glabella with his right hand, and a somewhat broken jade cauldron immediately appeared in front of the dragon and human. The process of extracting the Dragon Chi cannot be disturbed at all, so you have to protect me later. Xiao He's expression suddenly became a lot more serious. Then she waved her little claw, and a stream of ink-black energy suddenly turned into a whirlpool and entered the jade cauldron. As the energy from the whirlpool entered, the jade cauldron suddenly buzzed. Then the huge cauldron actually trembled violently. Then, an extremely powerful pressure spread throughout the entire training room. This pressure was like a mountain, causing the entire room to tremble a few times. Facing this powerful pressure, even Zhuowen couldn't help but stagger. Moreover, the blood in his body seemed to be boiling and rioting. What a powerful pressure! Zhuowen's face suddenly revealed a look of horror. As he had cultivated the violent blood beast body, Zhuowen's physical strength was far stronger than ordinary warriors. Even so, Zhuowen still felt very uncomfortable under this pressure. It was obvious how powerful this pressure was. Xiao He's eyes became even more serious. She waved her claw again, and 2 streams of ink-black energy flew out from her claws. Then they turned into 2 black whirlpools and entered the jade cauldron. As the 2 whirlpools entered, the jade cauldron trembled even more violently. The pressure emitted from the cauldron also became even more terrifying. At the same time, deafening dragon roars continuously whistled out from the jade cauldron. Plop! Under this even more powerful pressure, Zhuowen finally couldn't hold on any longer and knelt down. Beads of sweat the size of beans continuously flowed down from his forehead, and ferocious veins popped out one after another under this pressure. At this moment, countless giant dragon shadows suddenly appeared above the jade cauldron. Looking at these giant dragon shadows, Zhuowen was stunned. A look of horror spread across his face. This was because he discovered the 5-clawed golden dragon, 9 abyss demon dragon, frost dragon, and a series of other famous true dragons in Ryuka's ancestral records. Moreover, from these giant dragon shadows, Zhuowen could feel that these dragons' auras were extremely powerful. It could be said that these dragons were extremely powerful existences in ancient times. However, the illusions of these famous true dragons had appeared above the jade cauldron at the same time. Although it was only a part of the aura of these dragons, it still shocked Zhuowen. The fact that the aura of these true dragons was left behind meant that the cauldron had once imprisoned these famous true dragons. At this moment, Zhuowen really began to pay attention to this jade cauldron that had mysteriously appeared in his sea of consciousness. Kid, the Supreme Dragon Cauldron contains the auras of thousands of dragons in the world. You can choose a dragon aura that suits you. Kid, hurry up and choose. Otherwise, I won't be able to suppress these dragon auras for a long time. Just as Zhuowen was in a daze, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly sounded, causing Zhuowen to regain his senses. Then he looked at the majestic giant dragon shadows above the jade cauldron with a burning gaze. After pondering for a moment, just as Xiao Hei was about to be unable to hold on, Zhuowen finally said, I choose the five-clawed golden dragon. As soon as Zhuowen's voice fell, Xiao Hei stretched out her little claws at lightning speed and pinched the five-clawed golden dragon floating above the cauldron. Then she hurriedly closed the jade cauldron again. As expected of the Supreme Dragon Cauldron, there are so many true dragon auras inside. This dragon lord almost couldn't suppress so many dragon auras. Xiao Hei sighed softly, then threw the dragon aura of the five-clawed golden dragon to Zhuowen and said, Kid, take it and refine it. With this dragon aura, the power of your primeval chaos dragon roar fist will increase by several times. After catching the dragon aura, Zhuowen curiously observed the dragon aura in his hand. This was a golden dragon that was only the size of a palm. Its appearance was very majestic. The most peculiar thing was that there was a fifth dragon claw at the lower abdomen of this golden dragon. Zhuowen knew that this fifth claw was the five-clawed golden dragon's ultimate skill. Once this fifth claw was used, even heaven and earth would change color. Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen immediately activated the Yuan power in his body. His Yuan power turned into a long white river in his hand, and the small five-clawed golden dragon immediately broke free from Zhuowen's restraints and entered the long white river. Then, Zhuowen controlled the five-clawed golden dragon to enter the meridians in his body. When the dragon aura entered the meridians, the small five-clawed golden dragon seemed to be at a loss. It began to struggle vigorously in Zhuowen's meridians. Waves of powerful dragon aura constantly attacked Zhuowen's meridians, causing Zhuowen to involuntarily spit out a large mouthful of blood. Brat, you're really useless. It seems that you still need this dragon master to take action. Xiao Hei looked at Zhuowen, whose face was extremely ugly, and helplessly shook its little head. Its little claw suddenly patted Zhuowen's shoulder, and a black vortex suddenly entered Zhuowen's meridians. Then it flew toward the five-clawed golden dragon's dragon aura. When the black vortex appeared in front of the five-clawed golden dragon, the originally violent five-clawed golden dragon calmed down like a child who had done something wrong. As the five-clawed golden dragon calmed down, Zhuowen successfully guided the dragon aura into his dantian with the help of Xiao Hei. When the dragon aura entered his dantian, the three fireballs in his dantian immediately surrounded the dragon aura. Waves of blazing flames erupted from them and began to refine the golden dragon that suddenly intruded. Looking at the young man who had his eyes closed peacefully in front of him, Xiao Hei sighed and said, Brat, whether or not you can successfully refine the dragon aura will all depend on you. Although Zhuowen looked very calm on the outside, the inside of his dantian was not as calm. After the five-clawed golden dragon entered his dantian, it began to become restless. The golden dragon wantonly twisted its golden body, and the powerful dragon aura actually stirred up the three fireballs in Zhuowen's dantian, causing them to fly in all directions. Pooh! Zhuowen immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. A trace of ruthlessness appeared on Zhuowen's face as he said to himself, I'll go all out. I must refine this guy. Therefore, Zhuowen desperately urged the Yuan power in his body, and the three fireballs in his dantian also became more powerful. Waves of stronger flames surrounded the five-clawed golden dragon. Time flew by, and in the blink of an eye, the sky was already bright. Even the clouds in the sky revealed a trace of warm light. It has already been a night. Has this brat still not succeeded in refining it? Xiao Hei sat on the ground, and her pair of small eyes looked worriedly at Zhuowen, who was sitting on the bed and cultivating with his eyes closed. At this moment Zhuowen, who was originally motionless, suddenly opened his eyes. A bright light flashed across his eyes. Brat, you've succeeded in refining it? Zhuowen did not answer Xiao Hei's question. Instead he flipped over and stood up. His entire body straightened, and an extremely loud dragon roar erupted from his body. Roar! A huge golden dragon flew out from Zhuowen's body, and the appearance of this huge golden dragon was that of the five-clawed golden dragon. Whoosh whoosh whoosh! Zhuowen's fists were like an explosive spring, and they were not tired at all as they drew streaks in the air. The powerful force instantly tore the surrounding air apart, and a hissing sound could be heard incessantly. Roar! Roar! Following that, the five-clawed golden dragons continuously surged out from Zhuowen's body. When 6 five-clawed golden dragons had gathered outside of his body, Zhuowen's fists suddenly changed. An intense golden light erupted from his fists, and another 5-clawed golden dragon suddenly drilled out from his body. 7 5-clawed golden dragons crawled at Zhuowen's feet, and at this moment it looked magnificent and majestic. Chapter 47. Hanyu Haha. This time the power of the primeval chaos dragon roar fist has increased a lot compared to before. Even with the help of the dragon chi of the 5-clawed golden dragon, I broke through to the 7-dragon roar realm in one fell swoop. I feel that even if I were to fight against a warrior at the peak of the Nirvana realm, I wouldn't be at a disadvantage. Zhuowen laughed heartily. He stretched his body and stood up. His face was filled with excitement. Xiao Hei, this time it's all thanks to you. Otherwise I would have had a narrow escape. Zhuowen suddenly bowed to Xiao Hei and said with a serious expression. Zhuowen was someone who valued kindness very much. If someone gave him a peach, he would naturally return the favor. Humph, you're so mushy. I'm not used to you acting like this. I'm only helping you out of selfishness. It's not like I'm helping you for free. Xiao Hei pursed her lips in an uncomfortable manner. Even so, you are still helping me. I will remember your kindness. In the future, when I truly become stronger, I will definitely think of a way to help you recover, Zhuowen said seriously. His face was serious and not a trace of carelessness could be seen on his face. You. Xiao Hei curled her lips slightly as she sized up Zhuowen. There was a strange look in her small eyes. You've just made a breakthrough in your primeval chaos dragon roar fist. There's still some time before noon. I'll leave first. After Xiao Hei finished speaking, she turned into a shadow and entered Zhuowen's glabella. Zhuowen nodded and sat cross-legged on the bed to slowly consolidate his strength. At noon the market square was bustling as usual. People came and went, bustling with activity. However, when Zhuowen arrived at the market square, he immediately became the focus of everyone. Zhuowen could even see that many people's eyes revealed a trace of fanatical reverence. Clearly, this was the result of Zhuowen's strong defeat of Wang Zheng yesterday. Ignoring these respectful gazes, Zhuowen went straight to the old place where he and Black Rose had agreed to meet yesterday. After arriving at the agreed place, a burly man who had been waiting for a long time respectfully invited Zhuowen to the carriage, and then the carriage left. After about an incense stick's worth of time, the carriage finally stopped. Before Zhuowen alighted from the carriage, he heard Black Rose's charming voice from afar. Little brother Zhuowen, you're really punctual. Zhuowen lifted the curtain and immediately saw Black Rose's charming face. He smiled and said, Miss Black Rose, didn't you come early too? You look like you can't wait. Zhuowen jumped off the carriage and narrowed his eyes at Black Rose and the dozen or so fully armed mercenaries behind her. The mercenaries behind Black Rose were basically burly men with strength around the divine valor realm. However, what surprised Zhuowen was that he actually saw another woman besides Black Rose. This woman was not very old, probably around 20 years old. Her face was quite beautiful, and although her figure was not as good as Black Rose's, she was comparable to Zhuo Meishue of the Zhuo family. However, this woman's appearance was cold, and she seemed to keep people at a distance. How's the Linshu pill? Did you succeed in breaking through last night? Zhuowen sized up Black Rose. He could feel a terrifying energy fluctuation in Black Rose's body. This fluctuation was much stronger than yesterday. Clearly, she had succeeded in breaking through. Hearing Zhuowen's words, Black Rose's smile became wider. She said with a smile, "That's all thanks to little brother Zhuowen's Linshu pill. I didn't expect that little elixir to be so heaven-defying. After I took 2 pills, I successfully broke through. Don't call me Miss Black Rose anymore. Just call me Han Shui." Zhuowen nodded slightly and felt happy. He also didn't expect the Linshu pill to be so effective. It seemed that when he broke through to the Yin Void realm, he wouldn't be afraid of the bottleneck. As long as his cultivation reached the peak of the Nirvana realm, he could break through directly after taking the Linshu pill. Big sister, is he the expert you were talking about? Why is his cultivation only at the soul transformation realm? Isn't he courting death by going to the cave with such a cultivation? A cold voice entered Zhuowen's ears. Zhuowen turned his head and found that the woman with the cold appearance had come to the side of Black Rose Han Shui. She frowned slightly and sized up Zhuowen. When she discovered that Zhuowen's cultivation was only at the soul transformation realm, she said with slight displeasure. Although she was slightly surprised that Zhuowen's cultivation had reached the soul transformation realm at such a young age. That was all. She is? Zhuowen asked with a slight frown. She is the vice leader of the Flowing Flame mercenary group, Han Yu. She is my sister. She is a little blunt, so don't take it to heart. Although Han Yu is young, her cultivation has reached the early stage of the Nirvana realm. She can be considered one of the main members of the team to seize the ice pool. Han Shui looked at Zhuowen apologetically and then said to the cold-faced Han Yu, "Little sister, Zhuowen is the expert who refined the Ascension Void pill for me. If it wasn't for him, I don't know how long it would take for me to break through. Don't look down on him just because he is only at the early stage of the soul transformation realm. He was able to defeat Wang Zheng, who was at the middle stage of the soul transformation realm, in one move. If we were to really fight, his strength wouldn't be any weaker than yours." When Han Shui said this, the originally cold-faced Han Yu looked at Zhuowen with slight astonishment. Instead, she focused on the cave. Zhuowen could feel the rejection from the mercenaries and Han Yu. However, he felt a little embarrassed to be a bystander. Therefore, Zhuowen could only take the initiative to ask, "Miss Han Yu, what do I have to do?" Han Yu was still focused on the cave and didn't look at Zhuowen. Instead, she said coldly, "We are the only ones here. You just have to watch. Anyway, you can't help much with your strength. When the time comes, you might even be more of a hindrance." Even if Zhuowen had a good temper, he couldn't help but feel angry when he heard Han Yu's words. Especially when those brawny men looked at him with a playful expression after hearing Han Yu's words. It was as if they were looking at a joke. This made Zhuowen even angrier. This bitch must know about the agreement between Black Rose and me. This time, she is obviously rejecting me on purpose so that I won't be able to do anything. After we get the ice pool, I won't have a share of the ice demon pearl. Zhuowen thought for a while and understood why Han Yu didn't like him. It was probably because she knew about his request to Han Shui. Therefore, she was rejecting him on purpose. "Kid, don't be rash. I can feel that the meta beast in the cave isn't simple. With their current strength, it's really difficult to deal with that meta beast. When the time comes, it will be your time to make a move. For now, you should just watch the show." Originally, Zhuowen couldn't help but want to make a move. However, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang in Zhuowen's mind. Could it be that the meta beast has already advanced to level 1? Zhuowen asked doubtfully. That's indeed the case. It's a level 1 meta beast. With the strength of these mercenaries, even with the help of Han Shui, who has already made a breakthrough, they won't be able to deal with it. When the time comes, you will naturally make a move. Han Shui and the rest can't even deal with it together. Do you think I will be a match for a level 1 meta beast? Zhuowen said with an ugly expression. He didn't expect the meta beast in the cave to have made a breakthrough. If it was a day ago, it wouldn't be possible for you to do so. However, you now have the dragon energy of the 5-clawed golden dragon in your body. The 5-clawed golden dragon is an ancient true dragon. Even the king of all beasts wouldn't dare to act recklessly in front of a true dragon. Once you release your dragon energy, you will be able to completely suppress the strength of that level 1 meta beast. When the time comes, you will be able to fight it with your current strength. When Zhuowen heard this, a look of understanding appeared on his face. He then leaned against the tree lazily and looked at Han Yu and the rest with interest. Zhuowen's actions also caused the burly men to be surprised. However, they immediately revealed a mocking look on their faces. Obviously, they were extremely disdainful of Zhuowen's cowardly actions. Chapter 48. Scaled Tiger Rumble. Rumble. In a short while, an intense tremor was accompanied by a deafening roar of a wild beast. Everyone outside the cave revealed a grave expression when they sensed the huge commotion in the depths of the cave. They knew that they were about to face the terrifying meta beast in the cave. Han Yu, who had a cold expression on her face, could not help but clench her fists tightly. The paleness on the back of her hand showed that she was not calm at all. Whoosh! A slender figure was the first to appear at the entrance of the cave. It was Han Shui, who was in a hurry. At this moment, there was a trace of horror on her delicate face and fine beads of sweat trickled down her snow-white forehead. As soon as Han Shui appeared, the tremors on the ground became even more intense. At the same time, deafening roars were heard continuously. Then a huge black shadow rushed out of the cave at a high speed. A joy surfaced on Han Yu's pretty face when she saw that the Yuan beast was finally lured out of the cave by Han Shui. She immediately gave the order and the dozen strong men who were waiting around her pulled one end of the ice silk net. They suddenly exerted their strength and placed it horizontally in front of the cave entrance. Apparently, the black shadow did not expect that there would be an ambush at the entrance of the cave. It rushed straight into the ice silk net and was caught by the shiny ice silk net. Got him! The dozen strong men who had been on tenterhooks suddenly cheered. Even Han Yu, who had an ice-cold appearance, could not help but heave a sigh of relief when he saw that the black figure was tightly bound by the ice silk net. A rare smile appeared on his face. Han Yu, hurry up and run. This meta beast has already advanced to a level 1 meta beast. We can't deal with this big fellow at all. Just as everyone was secretly feeling pleased with themselves, Han Shui's flustered voice suddenly rang out, causing the originally cheering crowd to be stunned. Sister! This big guy has already been bound by the ice silk net. You have to know that the ice silk net is extremely tough. Even a class 1 meta beast would have a hard time breaking it open. Even if this big guy had really advanced to a class 1 meta beast, it wouldn't be able to break free from the ice silk net. When Han Yu first heard Han Shui say that the meta beast had evolved into a level 1 meta beast, she was extremely shocked. However, when she thought about the tenacity of the ice silk net, she wasn't as worried. Instead, she appeared to have a card up her sleeve. When Han Yu finished speaking, the meta beast that was trapped in the ice silk net suddenly roared. Subsequently, a powerful force erupted from its body. Following that, the dozen burly men who were holding the edge of the ice silk net felt an irresistible force coming from their hands. After that, they were flung a dozen meters away by this force. A woo! A loud roar came from the meta beast's mouth. Then, a scarlet energy spread from its surface. Under everyone's astonished gazes, the tough ice silk net actually shattered like a piece of paper. After breaking free from the ice silk net, the meta beast finally revealed its true face. This meta beast was about 10 feet in size. It was a few times taller than everyone. Its head was like a tiger, but it wasn't exactly a tiger. However, it was covered in brown scales. Its dark golden eyes emitted a bloodthirsty glow. It was actually a scaled tiger beast. The scaled tiger beast was considered one of the stronger level 1 meta beasts. In particular, the brown scales on its body were extremely tough and had extremely strong defense. The scaled tiger beast roared towards the sky. Its cold gaze was mercilessly locked onto Han Yu, who was standing nearby in a daze. A trace of bloodthirsty and violent light gradually climbed into its eyes. It knew that this human woman in front of it was the one who ordered the dozen burly men to ambush it. The scaled tiger beast stomped its feet on the ground. The powerful force caused the ground to tremble and crack. The strong repulsion force instantly caused the scaled tiger beast to charge towards Han Yu like a ghost. Seeing that the scaled tiger beast had actually chosen to attack her directly, Han Yu's face turned pale. She knew that the terrifying meta beast in front of her was so powerful that it could directly tear the ice silk net apart. Go all out. Biting her red lips, Han Yu knew that she would definitely not be able to dodge the scaled tiger beast's attack. Hence, she might as well activate the Yuan power in her body. Waves of powerful milky white Yuan power gathered around Han Yu's body. Defying Phoenix in the sky. A soft cry escaped from Han Yu's mouth, following which, the powerful Yuan power gathered in front of Han Yu to form a white phoenix that was several feet in size. The phoenix let out a shrill cry and immediately flew towards the scaled tiger beast. Bam! When the two collided, a powerful shockwave instantly erupted from the collision, following which a crisp cracking sound rang out. A crack actually appeared on the surface of the white phoenix, which was even larger than the scaled tiger beast. Following which, the crack quietly spread out in all directions like a spider web. The white phoenix let out a mournful cry as it was instantly torn to shreds by the scaled tiger beast's powerful strength. Following which, the scaled tiger beast continued to fly towards Han Yu's location without losing any momentum. The killing intent in its eyes was even more pronounced. After the white phoenix was violently torn apart by the scaled tiger beast, Han Yu spat out a mouthful of blood due to the backlash from her secret art. Seeing that the scaled tiger beast was still relentlessly pursuing her, Han Yu's face turned even paler and her legs started to tremble involuntarily. Han Yu, watch out! Just when Han Yu thought that she was going to die, a delicate shout suddenly sounded out. Han Shue's slender figure immediately stood in front of Han Yu. A pair of jade-like hands fiercely stretched out. Vigorous Yuan power continuously gathered in her jade-like hands like a whirlpool. Suddenly, a huge Yuan power wall condensed in front of her. Bam! The scaled tiger beast crashed into the elemental energy wall in a wild and violent manner. Immediately after, a violent whirlwind rose up from the collision between the two of them. The ground where the two of them were standing started to crack inch by inch like a spider web. However, Han Shue's move actually blocked the terrifying scaled tiger beast. Looking at the deadlock between the woman and the beast, the originally ashen-faced Han Yu suddenly lit up with hope. Han Yu, hurry up and leave this place. This scaled tiger beast is not something that you can handle. I'll hold this beast here for a while. Hurry up and leave. Fine beads of sweat continuously flowed down from Han Shue's fair forehead. Her rosy face had also become extremely pale. Obviously, even though she had entered the Void realm, it was still very difficult for her to deal with this scaled tiger beast. Sister, I won't leave. This time, it's my fault that you're in such a predicament. If I had listened to you from the beginning and led everyone away, we wouldn't have suffered such a loss. You wouldn't have to fight the scaled tiger beast head-on because of me. At worst, we'll die together. Han Yu's eyes suddenly became extremely red. The cold expression on her face was now somewhat miserable and resolute. Looking at her stubborn sister behind her, Han Shui suddenly felt an incomparable headache. She felt the pressure on her hand become heavier and heavier. It was as if the thing in front of her was not a ferocious beast, but an extremely heavy mountain. The scaled tiger beast's eyes suddenly became extremely red. An even more powerful force was emitted from its body. Then its sturdy feet stomped on the ground again, and with an even more terrifying force, it directly collided with Han Shui. Han Shui only felt the pressure on her hand suddenly increase by several times. Her pretty face suddenly became incomparably pale. Then a mouthful of bright red blood slowly flowed down from her cherry lips. The scaled tiger beast was like an engine that did not know fatigue as it rammed into the Yuan power wall that Han Shui had condensed. As the scaled tiger beast rammed into the Yuan power wall with brute force, the Yuan power wall in front of Han Shui became increasingly dim. When the wall of elemental energy became almost transparent, Han Shui's face revealed a mournful expression. She turned her head and looked at Han Yu, who was at a loss for what to do, and said, "Han Yu, it looks like we're really going to die here. I really regret bringing you along. If you hadn't come out, you wouldn't have died with me." "Sister. What are you talking about? If it weren't for me, how could you possibly die?" I should be the one who has wronged you. Perhaps I can only repay you in my next life. Han Yu said with a gentle expression as she gently held Han Shue's jade-like hand. Just as the two of them were about to die, an untimely voice suddenly rang in their ears. TSK, you're making it seem like we're going to part forever. I really can't watch this anymore. This abrupt voice instantly woke the two of them up, following which, the two of them were shocked to find that a skinny figure had unknowingly appeared in front of them, blocking their path. Juan, why aren't you leaving? You should know that the scaled tiger beast is a genuine level 1 yuan beast. Although you have some trump cards on you, your cultivation level is too low. You can't possibly be a match for the scaled tiger beast. Han Shui immediately recognized the owner of this figure, and she involuntarily cried out in alarm. Her voice was filled with deep worry. Han Yu looked at the young man in front of her with a complicated expression. Clearly, she had ordered her subordinates to reject this young man who had appeared out of nowhere. But now that she was in danger, this young man whom she had rejected actually stood in front of her without hesitation. Recalling her own actions and the young man's back, Han Yu suddenly felt a burning sensation on her cheeks. Juan, your strength is not even comparable to mine. You'd better not sacrifice yourself for us. You'd better leave quickly, Han Yu said. However, their persuasion did not have the slightest effect. The young man gently shook his head and said somewhat arrogantly, Don't worry. I can handle it myself. The scaled tiger beast was clearly enraged by the sudden appearance of Zhuowen. 2 pillars of air spewed out from its nostrils as a furious roar erupted from its throat. Once again it stomped its feet on the ground and charged towards Zhuowen like a cannonball. This time the strength used by the scaled tiger beast was far greater than the previous few times. Even the air was torn apart by its powerful strength, and the sound of air exploding continuously reverberated in everyone's ears. Zhuowen snorted coldly. Silently, he mobilized the strength of 7 dragons in his body. The golden dragon aura of the 5-clawed golden dragon instantly gathered on both of his fists. At the same time, Zhuowen silently activated the first heaven of rampage of the violent blood beast body. Countless blood veins erupted from both of his arms. Instantly, a powerful force filled Zhuowen's entire body. It's over. Zhuowen is too impulsive. Now is not the time to show off. Just as Han Shui was shaking her head and sighing at Zhuowen's impulsiveness, she saw Zhuowen's fists suddenly explode. Blood veins and dragon aura crisscrossed on both of his arms. Then they landed heavily on the scaled tiger beast's head. Chapter 49. Deep in the cave, how is this possible? The scaled tiger beast was actually pushed back? Han Shui and Han Yu both covered their cherry lips with their jade-like hands. Their beautiful eyes were filled with disbelief as they looked at the scaled tiger beast that had been pushed back a dozen steps. They really couldn't understand how Zhuowen, who was only at the soul transformation realm, was able to fight against the scaled tiger beast that even Han Shui, who was at the Yin Void realm, couldn't deal with. As if they had expected something, the two girls suddenly focused their attention on the skinny figure. They saw that the young figure wasn't in a good condition either. He had also been pushed back a dozen steps. The powerful force instantly carved out 2 deep depressions in the ground. With a muffled groan, Zhuowen wasn't surprised. Instead, he looked at his hands with joy. At this moment, there were 2 strands of red and yellow energy crisscrossing in his hands. An extremely powerful wave emitted from Zhuowen's fists. Zhuowen could feel that the dragon aura condensed in his palms was just as Xiao He had said. It really did have the effect of suppressing the strength of a meta beast. Moreover, the dragon aura and the blood strands intertwined with each other, producing a considerable amount of power. When Zhuowen's fist came into contact with the scaled tiger beast, the pressure from the dragon aura caused the scaled tiger beast's entire body to stiffen. Its original strength as a level 1 meta beast was actually suppressed by the dragon aura. It could only display the strength of a Nirvana realm martial artist. It was precisely because the scaled tiger beast's strength was greatly reduced under the dragon aura suppression that Zhuowen was able to push it back with a single punch. However, Zhuowen didn't have it easy either. His internal organs were slightly injured, but under the effect of the immortal essence, these injuries gradually recovered. Suddenly stomping on the ground, A hint of fear appeared in the scaled tiger beast's scarlet eyes for the first time. It could feel that when it came into contact with the human youth in front of it, there was an aura that made its soul tremble. At the same time, its strength actually decreased by a lot. However, the scaled tiger beast was only a level 1 meta beast after all. The spiritual intelligence wasn't very high. Soon its heart was filled with rage. It exhaled 2 air pillars from its nostrils and actually flew towards Zhuowen again. The surface of its body emitted an even more intense blood-red energy. Haha, you've come at the right time. I can use you to test the power of this dragon chi. Zhuowen laughed boldly and took a step forward. A powerful aura suddenly erupted from his body. At the same time, the golden dragon aura and the blood veins of the violent blood beast body began to intertwine on the surface of his body. The powerful energy immediately tore apart Zhuowen's clothes. Bang! With a spring of both his legs, the powerful recoil force shattered the ground. Zhuowen's entire body was like a ghost as he rushed towards the scaled tiger beast. Rumble! When the two collided again, an even more intense light burst out from their surroundings. The powerful fluctuation immediately tore the surrounding air apart, forming a powerful and violent airwave. The place where the two collided was also blasted into a huge pit by the powerful destructive force. Rumble! 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 The man and beast seemed to be addicted to fighting, as they constantly collided with each other. Deafening loud noises continuously rang out from the intersection of the two. The originally flat ground had now become a ruin with thousands of holes. Looking at the man and beast that seemed to be evenly matched in strength and the destructive force caused by the powerful fluctuations produced by the two, Han Shui and Han Yu were already dumbfounded. Is this guy really only at the soul transformation realm? How can his strength be so terrifying? Even the scaled tiger can't do anything to this guy. Han Yu's gaze was complicated as she looked at the skinny figure. She found it hard to imagine that such a small body could actually contain such a powerful strength. Thinking back to the ridicule and disdain she had for Zhuowen at the beginning, Han Yu's beautiful eyes revealed a trace of self-mockery. The youth in front of her had strength that far surpassed her own. It was laughable that she had overestimated herself and ridiculed the youth's strength. Moreover, she had joined forces with the other members to ostracize the youth. Bang! Another fierce collision. Immediately, a powerful energy fluctuation accompanied by a wave of air spread out in all directions. The violent astral winds produced by the collision of Yuan Qi also caused Han Shui and Han Yu to involuntarily retreat by more than 10 steps. At this moment, the scaled tiger was in a rather sorry state. The hard scales on its huge head had actually cracked and traces of bright red blood flowed down from the cracks. The originally bloodthirsty beast's eyes were now showing a rare trace of fear. Zhuowen looked at the scaled tiger in front of him with a serious expression. His condition was not much better than the scaled tiger's. In fact, it was even worse. His arms were now dripping with blood and were almost numb. If it wasn't for the immortal essence in his body continuously releasing a cooling energy to repair his wounds, Zhuowen wouldn't have been able to hold on. "Ower!" The scaled tiger let out a mournful roar. Under the shocked gazes of the few people, it actually turned around and fled. The direction it was fleeing towards was the direction of the cave. Looking at the fleeing scaled tiger, Zhuowen's eyes narrowed. He lightly sighed and immediately took out a qi-boosting pill from his Chenkuan pouch and threw it into his mouth. Then, he sat down cross-legged and began to recover his Yuan Qi. "Zhuowen, are you all right?" Han Shui asked with a concerned look on her face as she led Han Yu to Zhuowen's side carefully. At this moment, Han Shui's attitude towards Zhuowen had changed. A faint trace of reverence could be seen in her eyes. Although Zhuowen's cultivation level was much lower than hers, the strength that he had displayed was indeed higher than hers. Naturally, the strong were the easiest to gain the respect of others. "I'm fine. It's just that I've overdrawn my Yuan Qi. I should be able to recover after some rest." Looking at the concerned look on Han Shui's pretty face, Zhuowen said gently. Hearing that Zhuowen was fine, Han Shui also let out a soft sigh of relief. Han Yu, who had been following behind Han Shui in silence, suddenly walked in front of Zhuowen. Unexpectedly, a trace of a strange expression appeared on her originally cold face. Han Yu gently wiped away the sweat on Zhuowen's face and said in a gentle voice, Zhuowen, thank you for saving my sisters and my life. We both owe you a favor. Also, I sincerely apologize for what happened just now. I hope you don't take it to heart. Han Shui was a little stunned as she looked at Han Yu, who had suddenly become gentle. This was the first time she had seen her sister treat a man so gently. Han Shui couldn't help but look at the young man in front of her, who was at a loss for what to do. Zhuowen also didn't expect that Han Yu would have such a gentle side to her. Thinking back to her ice-cold face at the beginning, Zhuowen had a misconception. However, Zhuowen wasn't a pig after all. Therefore, when he came to his senses, he shook his head and said with a smile, it's all right. My cultivation level is indeed too low. Miss Han, you didn't allow me to participate in the battle for my own safety. How could I blame her? Both of you have also suffered some injuries. Han Shui, your injuries are especially serious. Take these 2 qi-boosting pills. It will help speed up your recovery, Zhuowen said calmly as he took out 2 qi-boosting pills from his Qianquan bag and tossed them to the 2 women. Han Shui's pretty face revealed a joyful expression as she took the qi-boosting pills. She knew that the effects of the pills given by Zhuowen were comparable to that of elixirs. As for Han Yu, there was a hint of doubt in her beautiful eyes. However, after seeing the smile on Han Shui's face, she also knew that the plain-looking pills in her hands should be good stuff. After the 2 women swallowed the qi-boosting pills, they were delighted to find that their bodies heated up. Then, the 2 women realized that the yuan li in their bodies had unknowingly increased by quite a bit. As their yuan li increased, the injuries in their bodies also healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Before they could thank Zhuowen, the 2 women quickly sat down cross-legged and began to refine the vigorous medicinal effects of the qi-boosting pills. Time gradually passed. Very quickly 2 hours had passed. The injuries of the 3 women also gradually recovered under the effects of the qi-boosting pills. When Han Shui and Han Yu opened their eyes, their beautiful eyes revealed a joyful expression. This was because under the effects of the qi-boosting pills, more than half of the injuries in their bodies had healed in just 2 hours. One had to admit that the pills provided by Zhuowen were simply too miraculous. When the 2 women's gazes converged on the figure of the young man again, there was an additional layer of special meaning in their eyes. The young man in front of them was clearly only at the soul transformation stage, but he had the strength to contend with a level 1 yuan beast. Moreover, he even had a miraculous pill like the qi-boosting pills with him. In the eyes of the 2 women, the young man in front of them had undoubtedly become mysterious and powerful. Zhuowen, now that the scaled tiger beast has successfully advanced to become a level 1 yuan beast, I'm afraid that we are no match for it now. Why don't we go back first and wait for a period of time before we make a long-term plan? Han Shui looked helplessly at the entrance of the cave and said with a little disappointment, No need. I'll go in and take a look first. The 2 of you wait here. The moment Zhuowen's words came out, the 2 women were instantly shocked. Among them, Han Shui was even more worried as she said, Zhuowen, it's best that you don't go in. Although you have the strength to contend with the scaled tiger beast just now, the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool has quite a bit of amplification for yuan beasts. The scaled tiger beast's strength will increase by quite a bit next to the mysterious ice pool. At that time, even you will have a hard time dealing with the scaled tiger beast whose strength has greatly increased. Zhuowen was stunned. He did not expect the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool to have such an effect. No wonder the scaled tiger beast had been guarding the cave all this time. It turned out that it had such an effect. After pondering for a while, Zhuowen still decided to go in and take a look. This was because he was very confident in the dragon energy of the 5-clawed golden dragon in his body. Moreover, other than the dragon energy of the 5-clawed golden dragon, Zhuowen also had the mysterious Xiaohe dragon in his sea of consciousness. If Zhuowen was in danger, he did not believe that the Xiaohe dragon would leave him in the lurch. I've made up my mind. The 2 of you stand guard outside the cave. I'll go in and take a look. After saying that, Zhuowen did not wait for the 2 girls to respond before he leaped into the depths of the cave and disappeared. Why is this guy so impulsive? Han Yu could not help but stomp her foot and say angrily when she saw Zhuowen acting so impulsively. Han Yu, don't be fooled by Zhuowen's impulsive appearance. In fact, he would never do something that he is not confident in. Think about it, when has this guy ever been at a disadvantage? This time he chose to enter the cave. This guy should have a trump card up his sleeve. Han Shui was not surprised by Zhuowen's actions at all. After spending some time together, Han Shui had some understanding of Zhuowen's character. She knew that this seemingly immature young man was actually very mature and shrewd. His seemingly impulsive actions were actually carefully thought out by this young man. Han Shui had never seen such a young man in her life. I hope it's really as you say. Han Yu sighed slightly as she looked worriedly into the depths of the cave. Chapter 50. Ice Fiend Cold Pearl. The deep cave was pitch black as if it had no end. Zhuowen was extremely cautious as he walked through the tunnel. His footsteps were also as light as possible. Kid. The scaled tiger beast is just 10 meters ahead. However, this beast has some intelligence. It actually knows how to use the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool's extreme cold to heal itself. At this moment, there was only Zhuowen in the cave, so Xiao He came out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows and sat on Zhuowen's shoulder. Zhuowen's face revealed a joyous expression when he heard Xiao He's words. Moreover, he could also feel the faintly discernible chilliness in the air. Clearly, the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool was just ahead as Xiao He had said. Immediately, he no longer walked slowly. Instead, he shot forward and arrived at the corner. What appeared in front of Zhuowen was a large stone room. The originally pitch-black stone room was shrouded in a dark blue light. If one looked carefully, they would discover that the light source came from a small pool in the middle of the stone room. The small pool wasn't big, but the surface of the pool was flowing with a faint fluorescent light. It was this fluorescent light that lit up the stone room. Moreover, when Zhuowen entered the stone room, a powerful cold qi rushed towards him. A trace of ice immediately appeared on Zhuowen's skin. 10,000-year mysterious ice pool. Looking at the strange pool in front of him, Zhuowen's eyes lit up. Moreover, what made Zhuowen's eyes even more heated were the 3 crystal-clear pearls floating above the pool. Zhuowen knew that the 3 pearls were the Ice Fiend Cold Pearls that Han Shui mentioned. Zhuowen. The cold qi of the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool is extremely powerful. Even some corporeal Yang Realm warriors may not be able to withstand the cold qi's invasion. Fortunately, your luck is not bad. This 10,000-year profound ice pool can actually condense a treasure like the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl. Most of the cold energy in the 10,000-year profound ice pool has been absorbed by the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl, so the cold energy has weakened a lot. Xiao He sat on Zhuowen's shoulder and smacked her lips. She could not help but secretly praise Zhuowen's luck. The scaled tiger beast, which was originally lying on the edge of the pool, also noticed the uninvited guest, Zhuowen. It let out an angry roar, a trace of fear in its scarlet eyes. Towards Zhuowen, the human warrior who had just injured it, the scaled tiger beast's memory took precedence. Brat! The 10,000-year mysterious ice pool has a certain amplification effect on meta beasts. The scaled tiger beasts are not easy to deal with now. Xiao He gloated. Zhuowen shrugged and said, "Just now outside the cave, I did not use my full strength. If I had completely released the dragon energy of the 5-clawed golden dragon, the scaled tiger beast would not have been my match." At this point, Zhuowen grinned and looked at the scaled tiger beast, who was glaring at him like a tiger watching its prey. As if it had felt the mockery in Zhuowen's eyes, the scaled tiger beast let out an angry roar and stomped its feet on the ground. At the same time, a thick blood-colored energy wrapped around the scaled tiger beast like blood. An aura that was even more powerful than before suddenly exploded from the scaled tiger beast's body. Whoosh! The scaled tiger beast charged towards Zhuowen like a cannonball. Its sharp teeth flashed a cold light in the darkness. Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly. The yuan power in his body suddenly gathered in his hands. Bending his legs, Zhuowen did not retreat. Instead, he advanced and punched towards the scaled tiger beast. With a punch, an endless amount of dragon energy roared out from Zhuowen's body. A deafening dragon roar also sounded. 7 golden 5-clawed golden dragons suddenly burst out from Zhuowen's body. Primeval Chaos Dragon Roar Fist. 7 dragons roar. A deep roar came from Zhuowen's throat. Then the 7 golden 5-clawed golden dragons merged into Zhuowen's fist. A huge light pillar suddenly exploded. Zhuowen's entire body seemed to have transformed into a 5-clawed golden dragon. And this punch seemed to have become the 5-clawed golden dragon's 5th claw. The originally ferocious scaled tiger beast also felt the dragon energy that had completely exploded from Zhuowen's body. This dragon energy was like a 10,000 zhang tall mountain that suddenly pressed down on it. Its instinctive fear caused the blood-colored energy on the surface of the scaled tiger beast's body to dim. Rumble! With an earth-shattering explosion, a ball of light suddenly exploded. Then a mournful howl sounded out. Then the huge scaled tiger beast flew backwards like a withered leaf. At this moment, the scaled tiger beast's condition was extremely miserable. The scales on its body were all rolled up. Fresh blood poured out like a faucet that had not been turned on properly. The scaled tiger beast was lying on the ground. It was barely breathing and seemed to be on the verge of death. Zhuowen could not help but groan as he retreated a dozen steps. After drawing an extremely deep dent in the ground, he barely managed to stop himself. He hurriedly swallowed a qi-boosting pill and gradually calmed the turbulent injuries in his body. This scaled tiger beast's strength has increased by quite a bit. Even if I completely unleashed my dragon energy, it would still be a little difficult to win. Zhuowen coughed and said helplessly, "Kid, you should be content. If you completely unleashed your dragon energy, you would at least be able to fight a peak level 1 meta beast and not lose." Although the scaled tiger beast has just advanced to level 1 meta beast and is only an early level 1 meta beast, with the amplification effect of the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool, it is comparable to a late level 1 meta beast. Xiao He muttered with some dissatisfaction. Then she rolled her eyes and looked at the 3 ice fiend frost pearls floating above the mysterious ice pool. She said, "All right. You should quickly take the ice fiend frost pearls. You should know that this kind of magical item has unimaginable benefits when you advance to the Een Void realm in the future." After Xiao He said this, Zhuowen immediately looked at the 3 ice fiend frost pearls above the pool. Then without any hesitation, he put all 3 pearls into his Qingkuan bag. After the 3 ice fiend frost pearls were taken away by Zhuowen, the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool suddenly became dim. Even Zhuowen could feel that the cold air in the air was gradually retreating. Most of the cold air in the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool is condensed in the ice fiend frost pearls. Once the ice fiend frost pearls are taken away, the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool will gradually wither and become a pool of useless stagnant water. Just as Zhuowen was wondering about the changes in the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool, Xiao He's words came into his ears. Nodding slightly, Zhuowen also felt that it was a pity that such a pool would wither like this. However, this regret was quickly replaced by the joy of obtaining the ice fiend frost pearls. Why hasn't Zhuowen come out after such a long time? Could it be that something has happened? Outside the cave, Han Yu kept pacing back and forth with a worried look on her face. Even Han Shui, who was very confident in Zhuowen, felt uneasy in her heart. However, Han Shui's personality was more stable, and she did not pace back and forth anxiously like Han Yu. Just as the 2 women were worried about Zhuowen's situation, numerous figures suddenly appeared in the dense forest around the cave. Not good. Leader, vice leader, we seem to have been surrounded. At this moment, the burly man named Achio suddenly came in front of the 2 women in a panic and said with a somewhat urgent voice, "What?" Han Shui was shocked. Her beautiful eyes looked around and found that there were indeed many figures in the forest. Her pretty face immediately turned cold and she said with an ugly expression, "How is this possible? Our operation this time was very secretive. How could anyone know about our mercenary group's movements?" Han Yu obviously also found that there were some densely packed figures in the surroundings. Her pretty face suddenly became extremely pale. She also could not understand how their mercenary group's movements were exposed. "Achio, quickly go and gather our brothers. It seems that we need to retreat into the cave." Achio suddenly whispered in Lu Feng's ear. Lu Feng's expression changed. His eyes narrowed slightly as he said, "Where is he?" He entered the cave alone to search for the scaled tiger. "Oh, This guy is really stupid. Doesn't he know that the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool has a great effect on meta beasts? He actually entered the cave alone. Seems that this guy is dead for sure. He is no longer a threat. At this point, Lu Feng's gaze stopped on Han Shui and Han Yu. Especially when he saw Han Shui's hot body, a trace of lust appeared in the depths of his eyes. The two of you can't escape even if you have wings. I think it's better for you to obediently surrender. As Lu Feng spoke, a pair of thick hands reached out to grab the two women. However, just as he was about to touch them, a strong gust of wind suddenly blew over. Lu Feng's pupils shrank. He discovered that a shadow had suddenly appeared in front of him and was gradually enlarging. With a loud shout, he suddenly threw a punch. A muffled groan was heard, following which, under the shocked gazes of everyone, Lu Feng was actually forced back a dozen steps. Instantly, two deep depressions were formed in the ground. Chapter 51. Beat Lu Feng. The scene suddenly became incomparably quiet. Regardless of whether it was Han Shui, Han Yu or Lu Feng's men, all of their gazes were focused on Lu Feng, who was constantly retreating. However, when these people clearly saw that the beast that was flying towards Lu Feng was actually an extremely large-scaled tiger, all of them simultaneously sucked in a breath of cold air. Bang! Retreating a dozen steps, Lu Feng's yuan power swirled around in his body. Powerful yuan power condensed in his fists. At the same time, his fists were like a pile driver as he punched the scaled tiger's body dozens of times. The force generated from the collisions created a hurricane. It wasn't until the last punch that the scaled tiger's body finally came to a stop. With a plop, the scaled tiger's huge body landed in front of Lu Feng. Lu Feng let out a sigh of relief. His face was filled with shock. When he first came into contact with the scaled tiger beast's body, he knew that it was already a corpse. He knew that this scaled tiger beast's body had been thrown out by someone with brute force. Feeling the numbness in his hands, Lu Feng knew that the person who threw out the scaled tiger beast's corpse was extremely powerful. Thinking of this, Lu Feng's gaze immediately focused on the cave where the scaled tiger beast's corpse had been thrown out. His eyes narrowed solemnly. The strange state of the scaled tiger beast was also discovered by the crowd. When they discovered that the scaled tiger beast was actually a corpse that had died not long ago, everyone was shocked. They knew that the scaled tiger beast was a genuine level 1 meta beast. It was very difficult to kill a level 1 meta beast without the cultivation of the Yin Void Realm. Everyone followed Lu Feng's line of sight and focused their attention on the entrance of the cave. They knew that the owner of the scaled tiger beast was inside the cave. Dong dong dong. Soft footsteps were heard and a skinny figure slowly appeared in front of everyone's eyes. When the crowd realized that this figure was actually a 15-year-old youth, they couldn't help but be stunned. At the same time, a frightening thought rose in their minds. Could it be that the person who killed the scaled tiger was this young man in front of them? The moment this young man appeared at the entrance of the cave, Han Shui and Han Yu, who were lying on the ground, looked hopeful. Their beautiful eyes were filled with joy. Zhuowen, you have to be careful. These people are from the Maple Leaf Mercenary Group. They are here to snatch the 10,000-year mysterious ice pool. Han Shui suddenly said loudly. The person who appeared at the entrance of the cave was none other than Zhuowen, who had reaped a great harvest from the cave. When Zhuowen was about to come out of the cave, he had a rough idea of what had happened. Zhuowen violently threw out a punch as countless blood veins suddenly burst out from his arms. The muscles on his arms also swelled because of the blood veins. This was the first sky of rampage of the violent blood beast body. At the same time, Zhuowen silently circulated the primeval dragon roar fist in his body. The strength in his arms instantly rose to the strength of 7 dragons. The powerful strength also tore the surrounding air apart and formed a powerful hurricane. Boom! The moment the two fists collided, powerful yuan power suddenly exploded like a bomb. A huge light pillar appeared between the two of them, and the ground where the two of them were standing also cracked like a spider web. The powerful air wave set off a frenzied wind, causing the surrounding people to take a dozen steps back. When Lu Feng came into contact with Zhuowen's fist, His face instantly became incomparably pale. This was because he felt that his fist was like an indestructible steel plate that couldn't be shaken at all. Then he felt a powerful force enter his body from his opponent's fist. With a muffled groan, Lu Feng immediately spat out a mouthful of blood. Then, under everyone's gaze, he actually flew back like a stray dog. At this moment, the scene suddenly became incomparably silent. The members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group all stared blankly at Lu Feng, who was lying on the ground like a dead dog. They all sucked in a breath of cold air. Then when they turned around and saw that Zhuowen was actually standing on the ground like a boulder, their faces immediately revealed an expression as if they had seen a ghost. How is this possible? The leader's strength has already reached the pinnacle of the Nirvana scripture, and this kid's cultivation is only at the soul transformation realm. How could the leader lose in the end? When the 20 members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group saw Lu Feng's miserable defeat, they immediately revealed an expression of disbelief. Their gazes towards Zhuowen also became somewhat fearful. Ignoring the panic of these members, Zhuowen arrived in front of Lu Feng in a flash. His right hand lifted Lu Feng's collar, and his expression was calm as he said, "Lu Feng, to tell you the truth, I killed the scaled tiger with my own hands. Now that you've lost to me, do you think I have the strength to be a hero and save the beauty?" When Zhuowen's words came out, the members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group immediately went into an uproar. Even Han Shui and Han Yu's pupils couldn't help but shrink when they heard this. Although the two women had already guessed when they saw the scaled tiger's corpse, now that Zhuowen took the initiative to say it out loud, their hearts were fiercely pulled as they were extremely shocked. The 20-plus members of the Maple Leaf mercenary group once again glanced at Lu Feng, who was heavily injured by Zhuowen. They knew that what Zhuowen said was probably true, so many of them had thoughts of retreating in their hearts. "Sir, we were all acting under orders. In fact, the idea to deal with you all was Lu Feng's idea. It has nothing to do with us. We hope that Sir can be magnanimous and let us off." It was unknown who said this sentence among the 20 Maple Leaf mercenary group members, but it immediately received a response from many others. Following which, these people looked at Zhuowen with hopeful gazes. You all. When he saw that his subordinates had actually fled, Lu Feng's expression instantly became even more unsightly. The anger in his chest instantly turned into a fit of coughing, and his face instantly became even paler. Zhuowen smiled slightly, then looked at Lu Feng with a meaningful gaze and said indifferently, "I can spare you all, but you must join the Flowing Flame mercenary group. Also, capture A Qiu, who betrayed the Flowing Flame mercenary group, for me. If you don't agree, I believe that you will end up like that scaled tiger." At this point, the eerie coldness in Zhuowen's eyes immediately caused these people to feel a chill run down their spines. Following which, they hurriedly nodded and bowed as they agreed. At the same time, they swiftly tied A Qiu up and brought him before Han Shui. "Han Shui, from now on, these people will be members of your mercenary group. As for that traitor, I'll leave him to you." Han Shui looked at Zhuowen with a strange gaze, then suddenly said, "Zhuowen, Lu Feng's background is not small. Now that you've injured him, I'm afraid that you'll have a lot of trouble in the future." "Brat, Han Shui is right. You better let me go. Otherwise, the Lu family of Luchuan Town will definitely not let you go. Also, our Lu family's young master is already on his way. When he arrives, you will have to bear the consequences." At the mention of the so-called Lu family's young master, Lu Feng's face instantly revealed a smug expression, as if the Lu family's young master was his savior. Luchuan Town's Lu family? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed as he muttered to himself. Zhuowen knew a little about the Lu family. Luchuan Town was not too far from Rotan Armor City. If Rotan Armor City was close to the Annihilation Forest, then Luchuan Town was basically an agglomeration of towns on the outskirts of the Annihilation Forest. Luchuan Town also had a nickname called the Town of Mercenaries. It was precisely because it was very close to the Annihilation Forest that many mercenaries who went in and out of the Annihilation Forest to hunt would temporarily settle down in Luchuan Town. Therefore, although Luchuan Town was located in a remote area, it was rare for it to be very prosperous. The Lu family was the most powerful force in Luchuan Town. Speaking of which, the Lu family's power was not much weaker than the three big families of Rotan Armor City. The only difference was that they had fewer top warriors than the three big families. Their overall strength was not weak. Just as Zhuowen was deep in thought, Xiao Hei's voice suddenly rang out in Zhuowen's mind. Chapter 52. Hostile visitors. Hearing this, Zhuowen's face suddenly became serious. He did not expect that there would be two warriors of the Yin Void realm following them. Looking at Lu Feng in his hand, Zhuowen knew that they were probably the young master of the Lu family that Lu Feng had mentioned. Whoosh! Just as Zhuowen was thinking about a good plan, two figures suddenly flew out of the dense forest. They seemed to have noticed Zhuowen's group. They were stunned at first and then stopped on the flat ground in front of the cave. There were two men, one old and one young. The young man was about 20 years old. He was dressed like a scholar, wearing a fluttering white robe and holding a folding fan in his hand. However, his face was sickly pale and his eyes were incongruously gloomy. Standing behind the white-robed man was an old man in sackcloth with turbid eyes. However, from the strong fluctuation of the old man's body, it was clear that he was not someone to be trifled with. Boy! The white-robed man's cultivation is about the same as Han Shui's. He has just reached the Yin Void realm, so he is not a threat. However, the old man behind the white-robed man is a little difficult to deal with. He has reached the first level of the Yin Void realm. With your strength you are no match for him. Xiao Hei gloated in Zhou Bao's mind. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He glanced at the old man standing respectfully behind the white-robed man with fear. He did not expect the old man to be an expert of the first sky of the Yin Void realm. The Yin Void realm was divided into 9 levels. The power of the void armor condensed on the surface of each level of the Yin Void realm would constantly increase. A warrior of the first level of the Yin Void realm would condense a void armor in his body. He was much stronger than a warrior who had just reached the Yin Void realm and had not condensed a void armor. Obviously, the white-robed man also saw Lu Feng in Zhuowen's hand. His eyes suddenly flashed with coldness, but he still smiled. He cupped his hands toward Zhuowen and said, "My friend, I am Lu Yuan, the eldest son of the Lu family in Luchuan town. The man in your hand is my subordinate. I hope you can let him go for the sake of our Lu family." Although Lu Yuan's words were very polite, there was an unquestionable tone in his voice. Zhuowen didn't like such a tone. When Lu Feng, who was being carried by Zhuowen, saw Lu Yuan, an excited expression appeared on his face. He hurriedly said, "Young master, you can't let him go. He has the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl in his hands. Moreover, when we captured Han Shui and her sister, he was the one who stirred up trouble. Young master, you can't let him go so easily." When Lu Yuan heard this, his gaze became even colder. The corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a sinister smile as he said, "It seems that you have come with ill intentions. But I'm in a good mood today, so I can give you a chance. Give me the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl and the 2 sisters, and break one of your arms. Then I'll let you go. What do you think? The Lu family of Luchuan town? Does your Lu clan have a lot of face? And who do you think you are? What right do you have to order me around?" Zhuowen sneered. "Kid, you've got guts. You're the first person who dares to talk back to me, but I think you'll be the last." Lu Yuan's expression suddenly became incomparably cold as he said coldly. Han Shui and Han Yu, who were standing a short distance away, involuntarily trembled when they saw Lu Yuan's expression gradually turn dark and cold. They had heard a little about Lu Yuan. Not only was he lecherous, but he also loved to torture women. Many women had lost their lives in his hands. Therefore, if they were to fall into Lu Yuan's hands, they would suffer a fate worse than death. At this moment, a trace of hesitation flashed across Han Shui's pretty face. She knew that the effects of the bone-softening powder on her and her sister hadn't faded yet. They didn't have any fighting ability at all. To Zhuowen they would only be a burden. Zhuowen had done enough for the 2 of them. She didn't want to be a burden to this young man in front of her. Therefore, Han Shui bit her red lips and said, "Lu Yuan, if you let go of Zhuowen and Han Yu, I'll go with you willingly. My life or death is up to you." Han Shui's words attracted the attention of many people present. Lu Yuan's greedy eyes swept over Han Shui's perfect and hot body. He couldn't help but reveal a trace of lust in the depths of his eyes. If Miss Han Shue's words are true, I will naturally agree to Miss Han Shue's suggestion. However, I am determined to obtain the Ice Fiend Pearl. If this little brother is willing to hand over the Ice Fiend Pearl, I will agree to Miss Han Shue's suggestion. Speaking of this, Lu Yuan reluctantly moved his eyes away from Han Shue's delicate body. Then, he stared coldly at the indifferent Zhuowen not far away. Zhuowen, they have 2 experts of the Yin Void Realm. One of them is even at the first level of the Yin Void Realm. We're no match for them. You'd better hand over the Ice Demon Pearl to Lu Yuan and leave with my sister. Han Shui looked at Zhuowen with pleading eyes and said in a firm tone. Zhuowen gently stroked Han Shue's silky black hair as he stared at the stubborn woman in front of him. You silly woman, do you think that this fellow will let us go just because you've agreed to go with him? I'm afraid that after we hand over the Ice Demon Pearl, he will still attack us. Speaking of this, Zhuowen turned his eyes to Lu Yuan and said calmly, I can give you the Ice Demon Pearl, but I have a condition. A condition? Boy, you're at my mercy now. Do you have the right to negotiate with me? Lu Yuan snorted and said, Oh, seems that you won't agree. Then I'll have to detonate the Ice Demon Pearl. At worst, we'll die together. Zhuo Wendao wasn't surprised by Lu Yuan's words. He knew that Lu Yuan wasn't a soft-hearted person, so he took out an Ice Fiend Frost Pearl and played with it. He looked at Lu Yuan with a meaningful gaze. Lu Yuan's expression suddenly changed. He had naturally heard of the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl. The Ice Fiend Frost Pearl contained most of the Yin Qi in the mysterious ice pool. Once this Yin Qi exploded, even a corporeal Yang stage warrior would not be able to withstand it. If Zhuowen really detonated the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl, no one here would be able to survive. Are you threatening me? Lu Yuan looked at Zhuowen coldly and said, You can take it that way. Or are you willing to die together with us? Zhuowen said with a mocking look in his eyes as he played with the Ice Demon Pearl in his hand. Hearing this, Lu Yuan's face suddenly twitched. He had to be careful about Zhuowen's words. Suppressing the anger in his heart, Lu Yuan said coldly, Say it. What are your conditions? The corners of Zhuowen's mouth curled up slightly as he said indifferently, Fight with me. If I win, you have to let us leave this place. If I lose, I will give you the Ice Fiend Frost Pearl and you can do whatever you want with us. How about that? Hearing Zhuowen's words, everyone looked at the calm young man in front of them in disbelief. Lu Yuan was not a warrior at the peak of the Nirvana realm like Lu Feng. He was a real warrior of the Yin Void realm. Although he had just advanced to the Yin Void realm, he was still much stronger than a warrior of the Nirvana realm. Lu Yuan's expression became a little strange. Finally, he looked at the skinny young man in front of him with contempt and said, Boy, don't think that you are great just because you defeated Lu Feng. In my eyes, your strength is not enough. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. I agree to your conditions. Zhuowen, are you crazy? Lu Yuan is a real warrior of the Yin Void realm. How can you be so impulsive and challenge him? Behind him, Han Shui heard Zhuowen's conditions. Her heart suddenly trembled and she could not help but shout. Han Yu, who had been silent, looked at Zhuowen's back worriedly. Her gaze was complicated, but she did not say anything. She did not know why, but she always had an inexplicable confidence in the not-so-strong figure in front of her. This confidence was established when Zhuowen risked his life to save her. If you die this time, I will accompany you. Staring at Zhuowen's back with her beautiful eyes, Han Yu thought to herself. Zhuowen ignored Han Shui, who was standing behind him like an ant on a hot pan. Instead, he pointed at Lu Yuan and said, Since you've agreed, let's start the fight. After I'm done with you, I still have to go home to eat and sleep. Arrogant brat, you will pay the price for your arrogance. Lu Yuan snorted coldly and suddenly straightened his waist. Suddenly, an extremely powerful fluctuation came from his body. Then, the surging original energy suddenly condensed in his fists. Lu Yuan bent his legs and his whole body rushed toward Zhuowen like a cannonball. Wherever he passed, the surrounding air boiled like boiling water. Seeing the power of Lu Yuan's attack, many people's pupils shrank. They secretly praised him in their hearts. No wonder he was a warrior of the Yin Void realm. His power was indeed extraordinary. He was indeed much stronger than Lu Feng. When Han Shui and Han Yu saw that Lu Yuan actually possessed such a powerful aura, their pretty faces changed involuntarily. Their gazes simultaneously landed on the back of the young man who was standing not far away from them. Traces of worry gradually spread across their eyes. At this moment, Zhuowen's gaze could not help but become dignified. His right hand suddenly pointed between his eyebrows. Suddenly 9 sword shadows whizzed and appeared around Zhuowen's body. At the same time, the giant armor soul in Zhuowen's sea of consciousness was constantly exerting its huge power. Under the effect of the giant armor soul, the 9 sword shadows buzzed and suddenly expanded many times. Waves of powerful aura were emitted from the 9 sword shadows. Giant, worship of the 9 directions. A low shout came from Zhuowen's throat. Then the 9 huge sword shadows suddenly turned into a huge golden sword. With a rumbling sound, it slashed diagonally toward Lu Yuan with lightning and thunder. Chapter 53. Maple Leaf of Death Rumble. A ball of light that was as bright as the sun suddenly exploded between the two, following which the powerful force produced a powerful shockwave that continuously spread in all directions. The powerful sound waves produced by the violent collision continued to spread in all directions, causing some of the surrounding people to involuntarily cover their ears. Under this powerful shockwave, other than the old man that Lu Yuan brought along, who stood motionless on the spot, the rest of the people involuntarily retreated a dozen steps. After they stopped, they looked at the place where the two of them were fighting not far away. Their eyes were filled with shock. They did not expect the collision between the two of them to be so exaggerated. After the dazzling light gradually faded, everyone saw that the huge golden sword was like a mountain pressing down on Lu Yuan. Immediately, they could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. They did not expect Zhuowen to gain the upper hand with this move. Looks like you have some skills. However, don't be so naive as to think that this is all I have. Although the huge sword was pressing down on Lu Yuan's fists were like steel as he blocked the huge sword with his bare hands. Following which, he laughed sinisterly. The Yuan power in his body was like a burst water pipe as it violently poured out along his meridians. Stone-splitting palm. Break for me. Dense Yuan power wrapped around his palm. Following which, Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with malevolence as he fiercely slashed at the huge sword over a dozen times. The air trembled and strong winds swirled. Kacha! A clear sound suddenly rang out. Unexpectedly, a crack began to appear on the surface of the huge sword under Lu Yuan's stone-splitting palm. Following which, the cracks continued to spread like a spider web, wrapping the entire huge sword within it. Following which, under everyone's gaze, the huge sword suddenly crumbled inch by inch and turned into fine powder. Looking at the gradually dissipating huge sword, Lu Yuan's face revealed a trace of pride. Just as he was about to turn his head to look for Zhuowen's figure, a figure shot towards him like a cannonball. At the same time, a strong wind whistled behind him. A trace of an ominous feeling rose in his heart. Lu Yuan suddenly turned around and saw Zhuowen with a strange smile on his face throwing a punch towards him. Lu Yuan was caught off guard and hurriedly raised his hands to protect his vitals. Lu Yuan, you're underestimating me too much. You're full of flaws. A cold voice rang out from Zhuowen's mouth. Immediately after, the blood veins on Zhuowen's arms burst open. His muscles swelled up layer by layer. At the same time, the strength of 7 dragons in his body fiercely condensed in his arms. He punched out. The powerful strength even tore the air apart, producing a hissing sound. The golden dragon chi mixed with the strange bloodlines in Zhuowen's fist at the same time, and an extremely powerful force came from his fist. Feeling the power of Zhuowen's punch, Lu Yuan's expression suddenly changed. He looked at the indifferent young man in front of him in disbelief. He couldn't imagine how this young man, who was only at the soul transformation realm, could exert such a powerful force that even he, a warrior of the Void realm, had to be afraid of. However, at this critical moment, Lu Yuan did not have much time to think. At this moment he could only gather all the Yuan power in his body into his arms. His arms protected the vital parts of his body, hoping to block Zhuowen's full-force punch. Bang! Zhuowen's fist instantly hit Lu Yuan's arms at the speed of light. Immediately after, a circular wave was produced between the two, like a ripple spreading out in all directions. The huge force produced by the fusion of the dragon qi and the blood veins suddenly poured into Lu Yuan's body. With a muffled groan, Lu Yuan, who was in mid-air, actually flew downwards like a withered leaf, after which he heavily smashed into the ground. With a loud bang, a huge hole was smashed into the ground. Smoke and dust filled the air as well. At this moment, the scene was terrifyingly silent. Everyone looked at the huge hole not far away in disbelief. They knew that this hole was caused by Lu Yuan's fall. They could not imagine that Lu Yuan, a warrior of the Yin Void realm, would be beaten to such a state by Zhuowen, who was only at the soul transformation realm. When the smoke and dust gradually dispersed, the scene in the hole was presented to everyone's eyes. At this moment, Lu Yuan's hair was disheveled and his clean and tidy white clothes were tattered. At this moment, Lu Yuan no longer had the image of an elegant young master. Instead, he looked like a beggar who had not bathed for a long time. Everyone inhaled a breath of cold air in unison when they saw Lu Yuan's miserable appearance. Soon after, everyone's gazes turned and gathered their attention on the young figure that was slowly descending from the sky. At this moment, everyone's gazes had become different. They knew that although the cultivation of this ordinary young man in front of them was only at the soul transformation realm, the strength contained in his body could be said to be extremely terrifying. How is this possible? How can Zhuowen be so strong? His cultivation is clearly only at the soul transformation realm. Lu Feng, who was not far away, was stunned for a moment. Then, his eyes were filled with disbelief as he involuntarily cried out. When the originally calm old man in linen saw that Lu Yuan was actually punched into the ground by Zhuowen, a trace of fluctuation appeared in his eyes. His gaze shifted slightly and a trace of faintly discernible killing intent spread out from the depths of his eyes. Bastard brat! I'm going to kill you. You'll pay the price for your actions. A roar like that of a wild beast came from the hole. Then Lu Yuan, whose body was filled with a baleful aura, suddenly leapt out of the hole. His feet stomped on the ground and an extremely powerful origin energy immediately caused the solid ground to crack open. Soul skill, Maple Leaf of Death. A low shout slowly came from Lu Yuan's throat. Then, his right hand suddenly pointed at the center of his brows. Then a bright red maple leaf appeared in the center of his palm. A powerful fluctuation was emitted from this maple leaf. Looking at the maple leaf in Lu Yuan's hand, a trace of seriousness appeared in Zhuowen's eyes for the first time. He could feel that this maple leaf contained a powerful strength. This strength was something that Zhuowen had never seen before. Brat, you're able to force me to use my ultimate soul skill. Even if you die, you should be proud of yourself. As he spoke, Lu Yuan suddenly threw the maple leaf in his hand into the air. Invisible ripples spread out like ripples in a radius of 10 steps around Lu Yuan. Then, Zhuowen discovered in shock that the maple leaf in the air was rapidly splitting into countless maple leaves. A bright red color immediately dyed the entire space red. The densely packed maple leaves wrapped around Lu Yuan's entire body. Under the cover of countless maple leaves, Lu Yuan's entire body became a red giant that was more than 10 feet tall. Boom! The blood-red giant suddenly took a step forward, and a powerful force caused the entire ground to collapse. The violent tremors were so intense that even Han Shui and the others, who were more than 100 steps away from the two of them, could clearly feel it. Elder sister, I didn't expect Lu Yuan's armor soul to be so terrifying. I'm afraid that Zhuowen is in danger. Han Yu looked at the blood-red giant that Lu Yuan had transformed into, and her pretty face turned deathly pale. Her jade-like hands couldn't help but pinch Han Shui's hands. Because she used too much strength, Han Shui's hands even left red marks on them. Han Shui didn't care about the pain in her arms. Instead, she was a little disappointed as she hugged Han Yu and said, "Speaking of which, we've dragged Zhuowen down this time. Even though we know that Zhuowen is in danger, we can't do anything about it. If Zhuowen dies this time, I won't be able to live in this world." Lu Feng, who wasn't far from Han Shui and Han Yu, revealed a look of delight. He knew that once Lu Yuan used this soul skill that could be considered as a trump card, victory was basically assured. Zhuowen, you've also had a day like this. Let's see if you'll die this time. Lu Feng was very clear about the strength of Lu Yuan's soul skill, the Maple Leaf of Death. Back then, Lu Yuan had used this soul skill to defeat a martial artist at the peak of the Nirvana realm. Chapter 54. The Great Reversal. He blocked it? He actually managed to block it? Everyone's gazes were filled with disbelief as they stared at the skinny figure standing before the mountain-like fist. Gasps could be heard one after another. The hemp-clothed elder's pupils shrank to the size of needles. For the first time, a trace of shock appeared on his calm face. Even he did not expect that Zhuowen would actually be able to block Lu Yuan's Maple Leaf of Death. Reckless brat, die for me. If I don't kill you today, my surname is not Lu. The Crimson Giant's huge eyes suddenly burst with a bloody light. It roared at the sky, and its fists were like pile drivers as it continuously punched at Zhuowen. Countless blade-like maple leaves also shot towards Zhuowen with the wind from its fists. Zhuowen's gaze focused. Not to be outdone, he swung his fist upwards. 7 majestic 5-clawed golden dragons followed Zhuowen's fist as they unceremoniously flew towards the blood-colored giant. Their huge dragon claws unceremoniously grabbed at the giant's vital points. Rumble! A huge explosion resounded as boundless energy flew in all directions following the intense collision between the two. A powerful hurricane was formed between the two. Bang! The two separated as soon as they came into contact. Immediately after, they both retreated a dozen steps. After drawing 2 extremely deep gashes in the ground, they stood at their respective positions facing each other. Haha! Let's continue. I can already feel that my primordial dragon roar fist is showing signs of a breakthrough. Perhaps after a few more rounds with you I might be able to break through. Zhuowen laughed out loud as a glint flashed across his eyes. Following which, both of his legs shot out like a cannonball and flew towards Zhuowen with a swoosh. Powerful Yuan power also covered his entire body. Good. You're very good. You actually want to use me as your training stone. I think you're courting death. When I capture you later, I'll let you taste the feeling of living a life worse than death. Although Lu Yuan's eyes were filled with killing intent, his heart was extremely shocked. Originally, he thought that using the Maple Leaf of Death to transform into a blood-colored giant would absolutely crush Zhuowen. However, he did not expect that Zhuowen actually had a trump card that was not weaker than his Maple Leaf of Death. This kid is only 15 years old and his cultivation is only at the soul transformation realm. However, his strength is not weaker than an Een Void realm warrior. If I let this kid continue to develop, he will definitely be a disaster in the future. Today I must get rid of this kid. Lu Yuan thought in his heart. Then with boundless killing intent, he flew towards Zhuowen. Bang bang bang. It was yet another bloody and barbaric physical collision. The two of them seemed to be in a killing frenzy as they continuously collided and fought with each other. It was as if they were not tired at all. The enormous Yuan power emitted from their fight even destroyed the surrounding tall trees into dust. Even the solid ground had many scar-like cracks appearing. Boom! The two of them separated once again, and everyone's gazes gathered on the two of them. When they saw the injuries on their bodies, everyone couldn't help but feel a chill run down their spines. They saw that there were many palm-sized holes on the body of the blood-colored giant that was more than 10 feet tall. Fresh blood poured out like a faucet that was not turned on properly, dyeing the ground red. The one who was in an even more miserable state was Zhuowen. There was a huge wound on Zhuowen's chest that extended from his left shoulder blade all the way to his lower right abdomen. Blood gushed out like a broken dam. However, what was strange was that green energy was flowing from between Zhuowen's eyebrows to the wound. This green energy was the effect of the Jade Cauldron Armor Soul's soul skill, Immortal Essence. Under the effect of the Immortal Essence, the huge wound on Zhuowen's chest stopped bleeding at a speed visible to the naked eye. The wound was also slowly forming a scab. What a terrifying physical strength and self-recovery ability. This person must have another kind of armor soul in his body that can heal injuries. In addition to the Shadow Sword armor soul just now, he actually has twin armor souls. Who is this person? The hemp-clothed elder stared at Zhuowen. When he saw that the wound on Zhuowen's chest was gradually healing, his face could not help but reveal a shocked expression. "Old mister, you said that Zhuowen actually has 2 types of armor souls in his body?" Lu Feng stood not far from the hemp-clothed elder. When he heard the elder say that Zhuowen actually had twin armor souls in his body, he could not help but feel his mouth go dry. His throat unconsciously rolled. One had to know that if a martial artist with twin armor souls did not die prematurely, he would definitely become a top expert in the future. The hemp-clothed elder glanced at Lu Feng indifferently and nodded without saying anything. Instead, he solemnly looked at the devastated battlefield not far away. After hearing the hemp-clothed elder's affirmation, a helpless smile appeared on Lu Feng's face. At the same time, he thought of Zhuowen's heaven-defying fighting strength. He knew that the young figure not far away from him was not simple. Perhaps he had really provoked someone he should not have provoked. You don't have to worry. Although this child's background is very likely not small, if we kill him on the spot, then everything will be unknown. The power behind this child will not be able to find out that it was our Lu family who did it. You should know that young Master Lu Yuan has not used that trump card yet. The hemp-clothed elder seemed to have seen through Lu Feng's worries and said with a faint smile, "Trump card? Does young Master Lu Yuan really know how to use that move?" When Lu Feng heard this, he was immediately shocked. He immediately looked at the blood-red figure not far away with fear on his face. "Zhuowen, I really did not think that you would be able to force me to this extent. It looks like I have no choice but to use that move. Although I am very unwilling to use it in front of others, I have no choice now." An ugly smile appeared on the blood-red giant's face. Then it stomped on the ground. The countless maple leaves in its body suddenly emitted a monstrous blood-red light. An incomparable aura suddenly poured out of the giant's body. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He could sense that the blood-red giant's aura was rising at an extremely exaggerated rate. Then, the countless maple leaves on the blood-red giant's body suddenly fell off. Only when the last maple leaf fell off did Lu Yuan's body appear. At this moment, Lu Yuan's face was very pale. Drops of cold sweat dripped down from his forehead. It was clear that he was in great pain. Although Lu Yuan's face was filled with pain, he still revealed a sinister smile. He glanced at Zhuowen before grasping with both hands. Next, countless maple leaves abruptly fused together. Rustling sounds rang out as the countless maple leaves formed a massive red-colored mountain that was tens of zhang tall. Maple Crush. "Zhuowen, I once used this move to kill a peak Nirvana realm cultivator with my early Nirvana realm cultivation. You should die without regrets to die under this move." At this moment, Lu Yuan's face was extremely pale. Large droplets of sweat flowed down his face like water from a faucet that had not been turned on properly. His hands even began to tremble. It was clear that the side effects of this move were not small. However, Lu Yuan still revealed a complacent smile. He gently waved his right hand at Zhuowen and the huge blood-red mountain shot towards Zhuowen like a meteor. Wherever it passed, the air was torn to shreds, forming a powerful hurricane. The destructive power of the blood-red mountain immediately caused everyone's eyelids to twitch. Then a trace of shock appeared on everyone's faces. The power of the blood-red mountain had exceeded everyone's expectations. The outcome has already been decided. Since young Master Lu Yuan has used this move in the end, Zhuowen will not have the slightest chance of turning the tables. In fact, under this move, he will not even be able to keep his life. The hemp-clothed elder glanced indifferently at the blood-red mountain that was shooting towards Zhuowen. His deep eyes were filled with ruthlessness. Not far away, Han Shui and Han Yu also felt the huge fluctuation from the blood-red mountain. The two women's pretty faces could not help but turn incomparably pale. They bit their red lips and stared intently at the young man standing not far away with his head held high. Their faces were filled with determination. They knew that once Zhuowen died, they would not continue living in this world. Under everyone's gaze, Zhuowen took a deep breath. Then his fists trembled slightly. The five-clawed golden dragon in his dantian climbed onto Zhuowen's fists. He knew that this was the final clash of life and death. If he could withstand this attack, he would win. If he could not, only defeat awaited him. Primeval Chaos Dragon Roar Fist. 8 Dragons Roar. A low roar came from Zhuowen's throat. He raised his eyes and saw Zhuowen throwing out his fists without any fear. A violent dragon roar resounded through the sky. Then, an 8th 5-clawed golden dragon that was not any weaker than the blood-red mountain suddenly rushed out from Zhuowen's body. Then the enormous 5-clawed golden dragon stared coldly at the blood-red mountain that was flying towards it. It roared towards the sky and a huge 5th claw extended from its lower abdomen. Then it grabbed at the blood-red mountain without any fear. With a loud explosion, the golden and blood-red light suddenly burst apart. The extremely dazzling light caused everyone to cover their eyes subconsciously. Then an earthquake-like tremor followed closely. A spiderweb-like crack appeared on the ground within a radius of 10 miles. When the light gradually faded, a clear cracking sound was heard. Then, everyone opened their eyes and looked towards the battlefield. However, what they saw made everyone stunned. They saw that the surface of the blood-red mountain in the sky above the battlefield had cracks. These cracks continued to spread as time passed. Finally, under everyone's gaze, it turned into withered maple leaves that fell to the ground. Hiss! Gasps rang out one after another. No one had expected Zhuowen to be able to break through Lu Yuan's powerful blood-colored mountain peak. Lu Yuan, who was not far away, saw this scene. The smile on his face instantly froze. Then, an expression of disbelief slowly spread from the depths of his eyes. However, before Lu Yuan could recover, a figure suddenly flew over. Then, the figure suddenly punched Lu Yuan's lower abdomen. Then, the hand grabbed Lu Yuan's collar and lifted him up. Lu Yuan. It seems that I have won this battle. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.